Go get your water, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, I need to get a glass of water. And
All
how
right.
much time do we have?
We got.
We got 10 minutes. We're
Yeah.
fine.
You'll be fine.
I thought I'd just call you in a big panic. I thought that'd be fun for you.
You were panicked.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was funny.
All right, good. All right, yeah. No, I'm not too
Can
worried.
you stop
Even if it
adjusting
looks-
your nuts on my fucking? Stop
I'm
it.
tucking my shirt in. I'm not touching
Go
my
get
balls.
water. Get the fuck out of here. Go. So, have you paid any attention to what's going on at all on Twitter with the Russia thing? For the record, is that a no?
I've got bits and pieces. That occurred just today, directly today.
Yes.
Correct?
So if I could give you a basic rundown.
Please, I would absolutely love to.
A hot dog salesman became one of the leaders of one of the biggest like military, private military groups, and marched towards Moscow because he got pissed off at Putin for an ammo shortage, and then he turned around, and then now he's going back to Ukraine. This scared the shit out of me and made me more of an accelerationist on AI, to be honest, because it's like the first time we've had a threat.
When you say hot dog salesman, do you mean?
I swear to you, he was a hot dog salesman.
No. I don't. I believe you, but it sounds like bullshit.
When people used to ask me what I used to do for work, I used to just say I was a door-to-door hot dog salesman. Apparently, I should have aspired to be that, because this guy's like he's a very wealthy man now who's in charge of a very big military group, right? Mm-hmm. And he marched on Moscow. And obviously they turned around because they reached some sort of agreement, and they're going back to Ukraine to fight. But I don't know how else to explain it to you. Like, he was like an ex-convict and then became a hot dog salesman. And then that started his catering business, and he grew a bunch of power from there. And even there's pictures of him catering for Putin, the very man he marched on. This is a real story. I'm not making any of this up. This is real.
I don't.
This just happened.
All the years,
the last like 21 hours.
And all the getting the degree and understanding political.
Sell hot dogs. That's what I'm telling you.
And all of this, and then it's like, so the hot dog salesman tried to form a halfway coup to one of the global powers. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to add. I'm just blown away. It's truly, we are living in unprecedented times.
I don't know what else to say about it other than like, it's made me more like accelerationist on AI. Like we need like different people in power. This is stupid.
Yeah.
We almost got like to the point where, assuming, all the psyop stuff that people are talking about, like who knows what's actually real, who knows what actually happened. A hot dog salesman almost got his hand on nukes. That is entirely a possible outcome of today.
Well, and that's what's so difficult for people, is to parse information in the modern. I guess we look historically as though this is fact and reality, but throughout history as well, the consolidation of information, the filtration of it, it has always been a very, very important part of governance. Information agencies, have always existed in governance. We just didn't call them that then. It was a spy network, or your right hand person, who's slipping the poison in. Like, these systems have always sort of been in place. So I think it's just a little bit more noticeable now, maybe more out in the open, and we're realizing, wow, this is a very complicated orchestra that we're hearing, and it doesn't sound good to the people in the audience. They're like, this orchestra sounds terrible. None of these instruments are tuned.
Yeah, I know you haven't paid too much attention to it because you've been busy, but like, my general point is like that this has been like one of the most like mind-blowing, like I can't believe it's a real story things where you can't even parse all the information to like figure out what the real story is. I've been
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with uh, text chunkers. Well, just like a custom script to break down very very large pieces of text and summarize it. And I've been thinking about this with like AI is eventually like you're gonna have AI news feeds and stuff like this that break everything down for you, and you'll understand the it'll boil down to the hot dog salesman point, and
Hmm.
that'll be your day. But I I think like we actually need this for we even need this for like the leaders because we don't have there's no way that any party involved in all of this has access to all the information possible.
Oh,
There's a
it's
fog of war,
absolutely
even in the
not feasible.
information age. So like we need this so bad, like AI advancements that
Well,
I it scares me.
that's sort of what the idea, the concept of a lobbyist is sort of supposed to be supplementary information to the government. So you get a group together who's very, because it doesn't matter who you elect, how intelligent they are, they're not going to be able to know everything about everything. It's just not feasible. So you want to elect someone who's good in governance and can smell bullshit and can sort of mm, you know figure out what's really going on. And then you get these lobbying groups and they show the data to the senators and to the senators legislative assistants. And that's how that process is supposed to go, but it's so bogged down and there's so much bureaucracy in it and nepotism. It's and I think AI could really just really streamline that information straight, because then there's a lot less spin on it as well.
Yeah, it's really strange too, because like with like the work I'm slowly doing on my little project here is it's even down to like the prompting with current capabilities of AI, where if you just ask for a summarization, right, you get like very basic information. But if you
Hmm.
ask, like, I've been boiling down very large programming documentation for things like LangChain, OpenAI documentation, and there's a new one I'm working on, which is DeepGram, which is it's a transcriber that basically can diarize, I believe. It can tell the difference between multiple speakers, which is very important for transcripts within like understanding anything. So
Mm.
what I mean by that is even that is infected by how well you prompt it. Where if I just ask for a
Yeah.
summary, I get a terrible summarization of the code documents. But if I tell the AI to act like a software engineer, and
Yeah.
only give the information that a software engineer would need to build this, right? It gives me really good docs back in this giant chunk uh, transcriber that I'm using. It breaks it down and summarizes it with the 16K version of GPT 3.5, right? And
Right.
if you don't think to prompt it right, you're not going to get the proper information back. And
Yeah.
this is kind of like why things like lane chain are very important is we need multiple prompt libraries that in a case with like a newsfeed, right? If you're dealing with this, it's going to need to be like report on this as if you're a war correspondent, because you'll just get the summary back of the hot dog salesman. You're not going to know about all the other crap that went on, is my
Hmm.
point. So it's like it's
Just
even
too much
weirder.
information.
Yeah, the current capabilities of AI, it involves so much human interaction when in terms of prompt
Yeah.
engineering that it's kind of insane that I can't even I yeah, I have to like think of so many different scenarios for these agents to interact with to be more or less foolproof. It is
Right. Right.
so it's a strange thing to deal with here. Um, for the record, if anyone wants to come on and speak about anything, you're allowed to ask.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't even.
I think the
Okay.
other thing I was the Elon versus Zuckerberg. I'm sure you've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
seeing
yeah.
that.
Do you think the walrus is going to win or what? What's your bets?
Well, so I've actually thought about this. So I know that Mark definitely has. So this is just from a visuals perspective. It's very clear that Zuckerberg has been focusing on fitness for a while. He's got a figure that would suggest as such. Um, but what's really interesting is I thought he was taller than he was. He also very clearly makes sure that in all the photos that he takes and are put out of him, he appears to be, because I thought he was like, like 6 foot, but he's not. He's not that tall. And Elon's like 6'1", I think. So he's got size and he's got weight on Zuckerberg. But it really comes down to, as someone who's been, and I've worked as a correctional officer in the past. Fights, all the strategy and stuff. Can you get hit in the face and keep it together? That's like a big thing, and I think, and I think Elon might be able to do that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Elon will be able to take the pain, take that shock, take that trauma, and keep going through. I mean, age wise, they're both, neither of them are in their prime. No
Uh,
one's gonna try to, you know.
Elon's age is what concerns me most, as far as like ability to get in proper shape for the fight and stuff like that. But also, like we're discussing a what happened, man. Like last week's been weird, dude. Like a submarine sunk and everyone was paying attention to it. Now we're talking about two billionaires fighting each other. Like that's another thing.
I think it's great.
Anyways, to go, I feel like I'm in a fever dream right now. To be honest with you, like I really
I
do.
know, like, the hot dog man tried to take over Russia.
Yeah,
The
dude, I
submarine
was programming
exploded.
at like 3 a.m. Right, just minding my business. I ran out of GPT-4 requests to try to help me through my problem I was on, and I was like, oh, I'll just go check Twitter, and Hot Dog Man is trying to take over Russia. But
Yeah.
the thing I was going to say is that the only thing that I'm worried about with Elon winning or losing the fight is that he is older, and it's going to be harder for him to put the muscle and time in as well. Like time's a big constraint for him. It's the same for Zuckerberg more or less, but Zuckerberg has made like if you listen to him on podcasts before, he's made a lot of his life around like getting physical and doing
Hmm.
sports of some sort, always surfing or something. That's why you see him with the paint face, there's a lot of him working on
Physicality.
his physicality, and Elon
Yeah.
doesn't do that as much. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing I'm worried about is like how fast he can get in
Yep.
shape. What's the time frame? Because there's
Yeah.
probably going
What's
to be like a nine
that's the big
month.
thing right there.
There's probably going to be like a 9 month ish time frame because it would be unsafe for them both to fight right now.
Oh well, yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure. If it would have happened right now, I think, like right now, like that, Zuckerberg would just trounce him. There's no, because he's been training consistently.
We
Um,
shouldn't underestimate the walrus, but that's why he calls it the walrus was because when he was like training with someone, they they didn't. He's like, let me explain weight classes to you, and he just laid on them and they couldn't do anything to him. So there
yeah,
is that.
weight classes are very, very, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys might be like, oh, but they are there for a reason.
for the record, with you talking about how the way images go out of Zuckerberg, you can't tell how tall he is. That's a little bit of a thing with a lot of bodybuilders. You don't realize they're like to like have a good bodybuilder physique. You need like a shorter shoulder span. The muscles pop
Mm,
on you more, right? So there's so many things with like camera angles and stuff like this where you don't realize until you. I think Kai Green. You ever heard of that guy? He's like one of the very prolific bodybuilder, but he's like 5'4". You'd never know. I think
mm,
he maybe like 5'5". I can't
right.
remember exactly, but he's just a little guy, but he's just jacked, and it's because all that muscle on that small frame makes for a very good bodybuilder physique,
Hmm.
and that's what you get here with Zuckerberg is like everyone knows the angles that you use to make yourself look good in the lighting and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So he's in shape, but like,
I mean, he runs Instagram, so
yeah. So
angles and lighting. That's it. Definitely his cup of tea.
someone said the simulation's getting weird, but
Yeah, it
yeah,
is.
yeah. I think Elon mainly has the advantage on just straight up size. If you're bigger as well, it's easier for you to put on more weight. Uh,
Hmm.
so that's another part of it. You're fighting like a outclassed weight scenario. I have a friend who told me like he he realized about weight classes because he was about, I think, 30 or 40 pounds over like a state champion wrestler here in Texas, and he was just sparring with him and like worked the guy just because he was bigger, and there was no other difference.
Oh
The
yeah.
guy was better than him. He was just bigger, and that's kind of a case in jiu-jitsu as well, where it becomes difficult after a point.
Yeah, definitely. But it'll be the other thing is I think that people aren't taking into account is that they both have access to
The
training
best of the
methods and
best.
equipment and
Yeah.
supplements. Yeah, that it just are not, and they're both very clearly extremely driven people, and they're both ego driven people, and that's not necessarily a knock on anyone when you're at that level of you know
I hope
cultural
Elon takes it
significance. You have to
seriously.
have some level of ego. Yeah, you have to have some ego. So it'll be very interesting, and I personally I will watch it. So
Yeah, the only thing I am worried about is like Elon getting like a brain injury or something. That would be like the worst outcome. But more than likely, it's. I said this in the chat, but like it might be a good thing because like the dude's not taking care of his health necessarily. He's just overworked and not really doing anything physical. So it might be a
this
way
could
to
be a
get
good
him,
cycle for him to get into.
yeah, gets him in shape for like a very long period of
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, because some people just the moment they get into that routine of working out and lifting, and they're like, oh my god, I wake up, I feel good, my arms feel good, my shoulders feel good, I feel taller, I feel more alive, and then they want to continue down that doing those same things.
Yeah, the more you get into shape, the easier it is to stay in shape for most people.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
lifting and exercise just become like a part of your routine. Very very addictive. Astroflow is very intent that this is all a simulation. So,
I
do
think I
you
think
think
what
the game
happened is
creators
is
are
they
like just
said
throwing stuff in front of us? Is this the achievement round? Is that what we're doing?
I think they accidentally typoed and said stimulation. The stimulation is getting weird instead of simulation. I think they're
Hello, Panda. Okay, well, we'll wait for her to get her mic on, I guess. Elon decides to become a sumo wrestler.
that's the once you've gotten all the achievements, then you can unlock that ending. That's the way that
Yeah.
works.
Is like the simulation theory is like we're prestiging over and over again.
Yeah, you get to keep you don't get to get perks, but you get to keep all your camos.
Okay, your microphone's out. You gotta work on it. Okay, we'll figure that out with her. Okay, that was strange. We don't have. Can Lex come on? Like, are mics working on other people? I think it's working on you.
I can hear you.
Okay, we're good. I'm just being paranoid because I'm trying to like fix audio issues with the last one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lex. Another thing that is kind of interesting to talk about is this new uh, AI platform is out called NatDev, and they're adding like tons of models. I've talked to the devs, and they're even adding some of the more lower end but open source models slowly. So you have a ton of people that have access to 32K now. So that's like a big deal with the coding space right now, is that you now have more that the AI can do. So I would expect to see a lot more app upgrades as we go. But
Because you had the big app boom where everyone was an app. Oh, I'm I can make this software, and then you know that became, especially in the late 2010s, early to mid 2010s, everyone was creating apps. So I think we're going to see that with
all right,
LLMs as
all
well.
right, we're gonna try again here and see if Panda can speak, but maybe she fixed her things. One more time, okay. We'll give you one more chance, Panda. uh, but yeah, like, it's kind of strange. Like, I definitely expected 32K to be a little bit better. I feel like it's not as fine tuned as the
Hmm.
other models, but what it is good at is just understanding like a large context of things. But you have to prompt engineer it significantly more than even 8K GPT.
Right.
What is this guy going on about in the general chat? Sorry, I'm distracted. There's a guy freaking out. Do we just leave him? I don't know.
He seems to be having a mental breakdown. I say just leave him. Let him have his mental breakdown. Let him be.
Okay.
He's a crazy man on the street. He's taking all his clothes off. Just let him do his thing, you know?
Well, you let him have his mental breakdown, and then before you know it, he's taking over a country. That's what's gonna happen with these
Yeah,
people.
he's a hot dog salesman.
Yeah.
He was yesterday. He was a hot dog salesman. Today, he's the leader of Russia.
Dude, I swear to you, anytime, because I used to uh, I used to not really want to explain what I used to do for a living. So like I would just say I'm a door to door hot dog salesman because it's the funniest answer, right? I just say I got the meat that can't be beat, and then and now this is happening. I swear I'm reconsidering my career choices right now as we speak live. I would like to be the leader of a private
This
military
is
company.
like, well, in Demo Man, when like Taco Bell has like a war with whatever, or like when people are like the really anti-corporate fast food people who are like, Taco Bell's gonna have their military anarcho-capitalist whatever society thing, it's it's like that's like, this is like a very, very narrowed down
Yeah, Carl's Jr.
small
owns
version
your
of that.
children. You know,
Yeah,
that's the
Carl's Jr. Fuck you.
yeah. There's another weird thing about that where I I I don't know if you know, but like there's the whole accounting issue with the money we sent to Ukraine. Like I think like a week before this happened, our government, the U.S. government, admitted to an accounting error where 6 billion went missing. I believe around 5-6 billion just before this happens, and
Oh God.
he's a
Please,
he's
you're killing me, man. That's
dude, the tinfoil's going off with this whole scenario. I can't help but have that mentality. It's strange. Like
they gave the hot dog man send should
and
give
then
the
he
hot
turned
dog
around.
man.
That's the other part. Is he completely turned around?
He played both sides. He's more than just a hot dog man. He's probably the most intelligent person out of all the figures that are involved in this. He took the bribe money from the US. He took the 6 billion. It was funneled into his offshore hot dog accounts. And then he got his Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. And then he pulled I'm sorry. And then he pulled up and he's like, "Yeah, make it worth my time. Give me the meat, you know. Let's meet in the middle." That's what he said to him.
See,
I don't know if that joke
see,
would
this is
translate.
this is like a strange thing where like I don't know why, but I'm like fixated on. There's more things to talk about, like as far as like AI goes, but or even aliens. Like I watched an entire 3 hour presentation where just a bunch of military guys talking about aliens and how, like, I don't know if anyone's seen them, but they look like Squidward. I'm serious, like the
Oh
statue
yeah, I
Squidward.
saw the handsome Squidward.
Yeah, that's the aliens. So we've got aliens, we've got
I don't
hot
like
dog
him.
salesmen
I
running
don't like
amok.
him already.
I've started to think about this. By the way, my opinion is that the war in Ukraine accelerated AI. I've been thinking about this, where I could see that I could see a world where Sam Altman was very. Uh, damn it, Lex. The man, this is my brain's just fuzzing out here. But I can see the world where OpenAI was going to accelerate AI on a slower plane, right? But then you get this war in Ukraine situation where everything goes kind of haywire, and I could see Sam Altman going, "Screw it," because they spent like 500 million getting ChatGPT up and running with the model and stuff like that. Granted, that's what they're saying they spent, but I think that's overall with when they were running it, you name it, because it was doing like 1 million a day. That's what it was costing to
Right.
run.
Yeah.
But I could see that the concern there makes Sam Altman just say, "Fuck it, let's accelerate this as fast as possible. This
Yeah.
technology's already on our
You
way to
guys can't
being
be
like good
trusted.
enough."
Look, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
Sort of a necessity at this point.
that's what I'm thinking. Like, I think like he legitimately has like these concerns in mind. So
Yeah,
while
I think they're very valid concerns as well. Yeah.
okay, do we? Okay, I'm just gonna ban this guy because he's being a dick.
Doing it for free.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't delete his messages, but or no, Discord deleted them by
Good, because I
itself.
like to go.
No, they're
Let's.
gone.
I was gonna go look through them. I think it'd be hard to hold one.
I don't think
Okay,
you can
so
hold anyone accountable because if it goes bad,
I
it goes
think
bad for everything, right? Like we
yeah.
don't have any like. There's no governments left if AI takes over everything and just it steals our atoms, right? If that happens, then who you holding? Who do you send the subpoena to, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, at that
nobody's
point,
here.
it's
Nobody's
a
around.
little bit
We're
beyond.
fighting with sticks, against the
Yeah,
robots.
it's sort of a point where it's like, is it worth even being pointing the blame? You know what I mean? The house is burned down. Why even bother pointing the blame? There's nothing left, kind of thing. Hmm.
The accept button's
Well,
in
I
there now,
think
but
if
I
it
can't
goes,
accept it. Did you start restarting your Discord? I'm doing tech support live, by the way. Sorry, I'm, I'm interrupting everything.
I think the thing is like, realistically, should a single individual be responsible if there's bad things that occur because of AI accelerationism, even if they're the main proponent of it and one of the figureheads? From a logistical standpoint, no, because this is where we were progressing no matter what. So it doesn't really matter who. But from a humanistic standpoint, yes, if something were to go bad, um, I can definitely see, even if it is the future and the solution and the right thing, I can see people being, it's his fault. It's that guy's fault. Let's blame him, because scapegoating is a very classic sort of sociological uh, tool that we use
Do
to
you
explain
do you
why
even
bad
have the
things happen.
internet left over to like say anything
Well,
though?
we're depending on how bad things go. I mean, there's it depends. There's always varying degrees of bad. It doesn't have to be one end of the extreme or the other. Things could just be like, you know, everyone ends up seeing, um, like a lot of social issues could come about it, right? Governments don't collapse, but there's massive social issues, and everyone's upset, and then they want to look to scapegoat someone, something like that, for example. I could see that happening, and I could see people doing that, but I think it's very fruitless. So it's not a fruitful endeavor at all to try to lay blame when it comes to advancement. It was going to happen no matter what. Advancement will always occur. Uh, if it's now or if it's 10 years from now, if it's if it's if
So,
it's
so,
uh if it's
so
him or if it's
here,
someone else.
let's follow the line of logic, right? Let's say my conspiracy is right that Sam Altman is severely influenced by the Ukraine situation to accelerate AI, right? What did
Hmm.
this just do? Right? Like that. So hot dog salesman almost got his hand on nukes if you believe everything as it is being presented, right?
Sure, right. Which is,
Do we trust the hot dog
grain of
salesman
salt.
with the nukes? Probably not. He
No.
he's got like a history. I think there's like a image of him with some bloody sledgehammer. Some guy did something and he beat him to death with it. Like this dude's like ruthless. He went to prison in like the 80s for like theft. This is like a real guy who's like worth millions of dollars, has private military. They've had action in Venezuela. They're kind of like Blackwater, right? This is a real person. I'm not making any of this up. I feel like I am. I feel like GPT
It doesn't
made all
sound
this
real.
shit up for me.
Yeah. It sounds ridiculous.
Yes, the hot dog guy. They've been active in Africa. This his military group, private military group, and Venezuela, and a few other places. There's a bunch of places.
I say I'm a little jealous. I wish that my endeavor into the hot dog industry ended up with me having a, Diamond
Uh,
Dogs
are,
Metal Gear Solid
are,
style
are you
paramilitary
saying
group.
you failed with your endeavor?
Yeah, I didn't know. If I'd,
Dude,
I'll
dude,
put it. I'll put it to you this way.
the guy that tried to attack him. There's images of him serving with his catering business to Putin himself. Like
This is just Metal Gear
this
Solid.
is a real
This is
image.
Metal Gear Solid. That's what this is. This is just MGS5, because Venom Snake, right, starts producing hamburgers to fund his paramilitary group. They start producing extremely tasty hamburgers in MGS5. This is Kojima predicted this. That's all I learned today. If you're taking anything away
After
from
his
this,
release from
Hideo
prison,
Kojima.
after his release from prison in 1990, Prigozhin began selling hot dogs alongside his mother and stepfather at the my brain's not fucking reading material right now. Open air market in Leningrad. So why not? This is a real thing. I'm not making any of this up. Don't make me
This is
hungry, fellas.
MGS5. This is Diamond Dogs.
I never played Metal Gear Solid 5, but can you
I can guarantee you
briefly
this is
explain it to me? You may as well at this point, because I
paramilitary
apparently we
group.
need to go into sci-fi and alternative war history to start studying the real scenarios we're in right now. So please.
Okay, so unless I have 8 hours, I'm gonna butcher it. That's how Kojima works. But
Can
I'll
you
give
do
you a
about eight
short.
minutes?
Short. I'll give you. I'll give you quicker than that. Basically, paramilitary group, right? Believes that governments are bad and that the military should you kind of there's this ideal that they're all fighting for, where fighters have a place to fight, kind of thing. And I'm very quickly summarizing that. And essentially, they need funds in the fifth installment, which is a backtrack. Takes place in the 80s, and one of the guy Venom Snake, Shadow Big Boss, whatever you want to call him, one of his guys starts interviewing a guy about hamburgers, tasty, tasty hamburgers, and they start producing
Are you kidding right now?
hamburgers to sell. No, 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 and they start producing hamburgers to sell to fund the paramilitary group. Basically, what they wanted to do was create an island that had nuke capabilities so that all the world's governments would have to send in a single solo mission to attack them, right? And that would cause no one else could be having war going on. They would all be focused on them, and they would bear that burden. They would bear the burden of that sin, and that would stop war. That would stop governments. That's kind of the plot. And so, in order to get to that point, they had to sell hamburgers, tasty hamburgers.
So
The
so
sins of the lolly lulelo.
so they funded the war with the McDonald's franchise. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yes,
In
yes,
this
they did.
fictional world, so
Yes,
this is now. Do you think he used it as a playbook? That's my question.
I. I mean, I wonder if well, so clearly the game came out after this guy was doing this. So I wonder if Kojima was like called him up on the phone, was like, "Hey, look, I like what you're doing. I think it's real cool. I'm gonna put it in the game."
I don't know how to interact with the world anymore. This is a
I don't know what
clusterfuck.
to say. It's mind blowing, isn't it?
Here's the other part about that whole situation that's weird is part of what he was saying that why he was pissed off at Putin, right? Was to there was a 70% shortage in ammunition being sent to his men. You have no ammo, right? You have very low amount of ammo, and you're marching back to Moscow. Like none of this makes sense to me. Like, how are you doing that with 30% of the ammo? It's just there's weird stories all about them. Like, are they just like capturing ammo caches as they go quickly? Like, you need like a lot of time for that, and they made it to
They're probably using
200 miles out of Moscow in like I think 14 hours or something. I can't remember the exact amount of time, but
my head canon is the way they were to accomplish this is by using MGS5's interdimensional Fulton extraction system. So that's
so
but that
sci-fi is the
doesn't
only
mean anything to
explanation.
you. Yeah, that's they're using an interdimensional Fulton extraction system to get supplies from one place to another. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
I don't even
Jesus.
know how to interact anymore with the world.
What do you what do you
This is clown world. It really is. Like
yeah,
none of this makes sense anymore.
I
so
mean
so what's the over and under on this makes I'm serious about this theory of mine. Like, do you think Sam Altman's going to be like more accelerationist about this because of scenarios like this where
I think
this is a real danger now? Like that is even if it's all just a puppet show, that's a real moment of showing that we the nukes almost went into a hot dog salesman's hands. Like a lot of them, the most nukes in the world, in fact. This is real, all of it. There were tons of flights flying out of Moscow. All flights flying out of Moscow sold out over the last 24 hours. Ton of people left. Everything
jeez.
here is like I'm not making any of this up. I was up like at like 4 a.m. I just couldn't stop reading. It was just everything for like 4 hours.
And now they're like cool again. They're like, "Okay, hot dog man. You made your point.
Yeah, people are
Go
talking
back and
about
fight now."
he's like most definitely going to be taking a dirt nap soon. He's going to fall out a window because he's the only person to ever challenge Putin on that level where he marched a damn army into Russia itself.
Sometimes, it takes a hero. Sometimes it takes a hot dog man.
Yeah, my favorite post on this was when the meeting could have just been an email, and that's what happened here. Hello, Panda. We can hear you.
You can hear me.
Yes.
Yay! I just
Okay.
had to make my font
Welcome.
large as possible so that I could make the button move below the overlay. So now everything looks like
Mm,
old lady font.
Okay.
Kind of going to one thing that you mentioned about 10 minutes ago. So sorry that this has nothing to do with the Elon Mark
hot dog
fight,
man.
and it doesn't have anything to do with Hot Dog Man. And well, it sort
It's
of
too
has to
bad.
do with Hot Dog Man. It's the it's something you had mentioned about the ability of an AI to summarize lots of information and how that's going to change how we get information. You mentioned a couple of tools. I've seen like quite a few AI tools that are doing that, and it does seem to be accelerating. What I'm wondering is how are we going to then fact check this? Because if the AI tools that we're using can consume more information than we'll ever be able to consume and summarize it, we'll never be able to go through all of that and fact check it quickly enough to be able to keep up with it.
So this is oddly a throw more AI at the problem scenario where
Right.
GPT-4 is very good at self-criticism, right? This scenario is not going to be perfect, but what you would do is have it go and fact check itself, and I'm serious. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's what we can do for now. But for instance, I'm only using 16K just to get it down to like a science of like how I'm going to do this with my own system that I'm building, and it's not perfect.
You mean using it for coding, or are using it for something else?
Well, the main thing that I'm trying to do is I'm building something called Tiny Jarvis. It's just a small project that I'm working on myself, but it's growing bigger and bigger
really
as it
fun.
goes because it's annoying. Basically, you have to do all sorts of prompt engineering with this thing to get it to summarize things properly. But my general point here is that using 3.5, even like the 16K version, which has more access to more information, I can give it about 12K context or 12K tokens worth of words and then have a 4K response. But it's never really going to do that. But what I'm saying here is that 3.5 hallucinates constantly. It will make up commands, all kinds of stuff. It makes up endpoints. The URLs will be wrong. There's all sorts of issues. And what we have with current theories with GPT-4 is that it is about 8 times the something George Hott said, which we don't know if it's true, but it's what he said. And he is working deeper into the fundamental. He is working deeper with AI than I am, for example. So it's the best theory I've probably heard, but it's about 8 times 220 billion parameters is what GPT-4 is. So it's a multimodal model that are all mixed together and kind of conversating with each other, right? So what you have is the better version of 3.5 is 3.5 times 8. That's the best way I can explain this to you. It's just a bunch of different models together. So what you have there is self-criticism, and this is what we need for these models to be able to do as we go forward. Mm-hmm. So 3.5 can't really criticize itself unless you add other agents to criticize.
And the more models you have, and the more times that they're sort of compiling this information, the more clear a picture you're going to get, I think, as well. So let's say you have one model and it's massive and it makes an error. If you have 1,000, different models, AIs that are sort of disseminating this information and trying to figure out what's going on here, you're going to be able to sort of gather that on a large scale and get a much clearer picture than if because what we're talking about is like, okay, misinterpret. Let's think. Okay, so there's a couple ways information can be misconstrued, right? So there's me just not recognizing it. So I'm at a stoplight. I think it's green. It's red. I go, right? I've misinterpreted the information there. It wasn't due to malice. I didn't want to think that it was, I didn't do it on purpose, but there's clearly a misconstruing of information here. So there's that. There's a possibility of just error, right? Then there's nefarious, malicious, and then there's, I think that would be like the main two ways that information can get sort of, and then subjectivity towards information as well, where something is very subjective in nature, and so you can technically think about it that way, but that's not the normal way someone would think about it. So when it comes to fact checking, we're not really shouldn't really be too worried about the subjectivity, because that's just going to be, the more times you throw it out, the more LLMs are going to, give different responses, and hopefully people are intelligent enough to say, hey, this is a subjective. Our orange is delicious, oh, it's giving me wrong information. Oranges taste terrible to me, right? So that's not something that we really need to worry about. So we can put that to the side. What's really important here is sort of the malicious and the just the error. It just doesn't
Yeah.
understand the information, and it feeds back incorrect information to you, and then it disseminates that to the population. So
Right.
the maliciousness is going to
Is
be solved
amplified,
by,
but it's going to be
but
amplified by human error.
yeah, by human error. And so that's not necessarily on the AI. So there has to be sort of, once again, like he said, the solution, as cheesy as it sounds, is more AI. So you have more
Well,
AI interacting.
I don't know if that's accurate because I just read something about the error rates from like machine learning programs that are set up with a lot of human oversight. And I'm trying to simplify because I don't know the technical jargon, so I'm
Okay.
sure that there's a more proper way to say this. But when somebody pays attention to it and attends to the training, it's obviously going to be more accurate. But as a person lets the program run and train itself, and you give it a set of data and walks away, the gap between accuracy and just outright wrong grows. So what I'm wondering is, because the scale of AI is growing so quickly, we don't have the ability to attend to this. So we are already baking in a lot of error. And if we don't have people who are informed except through AI, how are we going to actually fact check the AI? So if we're throwing more AI at the problem, but the AI was trained poorly
On
on
bad
incompletely
data.
inaccurate data, yes.
Yep.
Are you aware of what GPT-4 is being used for in terms of GPT-2?
Yes, I've been using GPT-4 for quite some time.
Are,
I've been using
are
it
you
from
aware? Are
since
you
the
aware of
beginning.
what OpenAI is doing with GPT-2 in terms of GPT-4?
No.
Okay, so they're using GPT-4 to help parse through the weights of GPT-2, and it's helping us understand how these work more. So eventually they'll be running it on GPT-3 as well,
I'm
which
not
is
worried about the
significantly
program's
bigger.
ability to
You're worried
understand.
about the source of information,
Yes,
which
the
comes from
original
people.
source of, yes.
That Now, from a philosophical standpoint, that's not something easily solved, because humans, by their nature, are very, let's say, interesting creatures. So, um, fat. What's the old saying? Liars, figures can lie, and liars can figure. Right? I'm sure we've heard that. So, and then basically what that means is that anyone can throw out numbers, and anyone can throw out data and make it look a certain way, and data can look a certain way to make you think something that's not necessarily true. And so that's sort of a critical problem with all facets of human life. Um, it definitely needs to be looked at. I think the solution to that's probably going to have to come more from our end when we're training it than from the AI's end. Obviously, if we train it on very, I guess it depends on how you view. If we're talking about a sort of singularity, right? A global consciousness I think then, even if it was trained on,
Wrong data, it
poor
would still
data,
figure it
it would
out
still
because it's
it would
smart enough to
transcend past
see
that.
it.
Yeah, it would just like children do, right? So there's sort of the
Sometimes.
evolution. Yeah,
We also see
realizing that
adults that become, really flawed adults because they were trained on
this is
incorrect
true.
data.
So again, it's not a yes no thing, is it? Because it's like, how many adults believe that Santa Claus is real,
What?
right?
Oh, Santa
Not that
Claus
many.
is 100% real. What are you talking
See,
about?
What
okay,
are you
yeah,
talking
right.
about?
See, now we have you know what I mean?
What do
Sorry,
you mean he's
Santa's
real?
very
Full in
real,
on
right?
Santa. He's
So,
100% real.
but as an
Real person.
example, that's something where,
I leave cookies for him every year, dude, and he eats them. That's all I'm saying.
someone's eating them, right? Someone's
You
eating
can't
them.
unprove that.
But like, as the AI develops a more global perspective and starts to get more information, it's possible that some of these smaller, I think, if it's not being done maliciously and on purpose, right?
That's the key
Then
right there. So the
then
likelihood of
things
it
will
being
itself
done
out.
without malice is a
Yes.
zero. It's a zero probability. So really, it's
So
determining
one, at
how
least
many people.
one.
Well, we know. Oh, come on. one, like
Not
more
every,
like
not
one
every
in
AI.
three, one in three people, more if not more, lie for their own self-interest. Why would we hold programmers and computer scientists to a higher standard than the average population? People are going to use these tools for all kinds of nefarious reasons, and it's going to spread like wildfire if it hasn't already. I mean, I've seen things where it's obviously written by an AI and it's wrong and bullshit. I've written things. I've been experimenting mostly with how social media is received and disseminated. So I've created a bunch of ridiculous things and I've put them out into the world on Twitter and I've tried to see what people are responding to and what they're not. No one
Yeah,
has
it's
taught
been
me.
you this whole time.
Yeah.
No
We
one
figured it out.
has said
It's you.
anything.
We're gonna
I
hang
know,
you
right?
now.
It's me. I'm
Yeah, we gotta get rid
responsible
of you.
for all the misinformation. No,
You're
it
the
was
only
really
human being. You're the
yes.
only person who has nefariously used AI.
Right.
Actually, it's just been you this whole
Right.
time. We didn't
It's been
realize.
me.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I'm the
The
hot
only one.
dog guy. I'm hot dog
You're the
guy.
hot
Sorry.
dog guy. Yeah.
No, it's
So
just, but what's
to
been
touch
surprising
on
is
that.
no one has questioned it. So I have knowingly put out information that is either not the whole truth or a gross misrepresentation of the truth
I'm
or
just going to say that I'm going to
downright a
throw AI at
lie.
your problem.
Yeah.
It is, I'm like,
Well,
as time goes on, let's say I'm successful with this thing I'm trying to build, right? I'm just going to set it to the task to go fact check you, right? And once it's capable
Well,
of
that's the
doing that,
thing.
it can, this just like community
That's the
notes on
thing.
Twitter, it can help disseminate the proper information. The problem with lies, right, is there's the old phrase that a lie travels around the world twice before the truth gets its boots on, right? So we're in the position where we're moving towards systems that can handle crazy amounts of throughput and information, summarize it, and feed it back to people. And
Yes. So
eventually
that's the thing,
those
though.
systems are going to be very, very well thought out and not perfect, mind you. There's going to be failure rates, as with anything. Any human that you deal with is going to have one or two bad takes, even if they have all good takes. They're going to not understand something. They're going to be working with limited information on something, and they will believe something that's truly wrong, or that there's more nuance to the thing that they think, right? That's something that may never be solved with AI, but it's going to have a better chance than us because it has more data points to work with. The more data points you have to work with, the better conclusion you can come to with anything in life.
Maybe,
So,
but here's one of the examples. Let me just give you a specific, so that you can chew on the specific. I did an experiment with the Mueller report and the Durham report. Basically, I started with ChatGPT and I said, hey, I want to write a really simple article to digest these. And of course, it didn't have anything on the Durham report because it was too new. So I had to find it. I had to OCR it because it was written as an image and not as like a scanned PDF. So, several hours later, I fed it back in through, I think it was like Upload Your PDF, one of the plugins for ChatGPT 4. And then I digested it. Then I wrote an article on that. I turned that into PDF, and then I put it back into ChatGPT to have it compare these two instances. So it goes from saying, this is not true, all of these things are false, to having me feed it specific information that's not complete because it's taking a 400-page document, turning it into a 20-page document, turning it into a one-page document, and then asking it to compare those two things. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's less about throwing more AI at it, and it's more about informing people how the tools work, in my opinion. Like, if more people understood, like, hey, this is the kind of thing that happens when you use ChatGPT, so that if somebody reads a one-page article on the Durham report, they can understand, like, well, one, you cannot summarize it in one page, so you should know that.
Well, the bright side here, just if I can interrupt you, is that people trust the media less and less as we go on here. So you already have like a built-in mistrust of most people with information that they're dealing with. Some people are going to accept things wholeheartedly, but because there's distrust, people are more willing to investigate or just not outright believe things immediately. Go research the hot dog thing. You probably shouldn't believe me right away. Someone posted some stuff in here, but that's my point. Is people are more suspicious, and they tend to go with people they trust, if anything, if they're going to accept anything. That is a strange news
Yeah,
story. So,
I don't disagree with you. I guess my point
so
is
what?
that you can going back to what you were saying earlier is you can manipulate data to say whatever you want. Throwing more AI at it isn't going to solve that problem. The problem is that there are many facets to every story, and there is no one single objective truth. So there are hidden
What's more
reasons for
likely
things, there are
to
public
catch
reasons for
all those
things.
reasons? You or the AI?
I don't think an AI can catch all those reasons because not all of those reasons are public.
Well,
Somebody's motivation for something, using the attempted Russian coup as an example. So, like, the motivations at this point, they're mostly speculative, and then we're going off of a few public statements which are highly curated for publicity.
I
So,
heard he was a pizza guy, so
I mean, right, I mean, I just don't think an AI is going to be able to intuit what a person's intention is any better than a human can intuit. I think
Well,
we're all
think about something here.
to
susceptible
take a
to
step,
lies.
to take a real quick, to take a big step back. What the crux of this is the creation and the spreading of misinformation for perceived goals, right? That's what the problem here is. We don't want people to use these tools to do those things, and we're like, this could be an issue. Um, but and I hate to sort of sleeping dogs lie this situation, because I think you're absolutely correct, and I think this is something that needs to be talked about. But that's that's the way it is. Organizations are already doing that. I guess in a weird way, if every individual can do it, that might be a little bit more ethical than just if certain elite billionaires and millionaires and people with well-connected families are doing it. If everyone can do it, then maybe everyone becomes far more. Um, I mean, they've done it in medical journals. They've done it recently. There was I can't remember the exacts, but with the coculin whatever the thing that Donald Trump had talked about. Um, some medical journal from some other place published a bunch of shit saying, "Oh, this is going to kill people and hurt people," and it was all nonsense. And it was published in the medical journal, and so and none
Right,
of the
because
research
medical
was backed up.
journals have a bias to only publish things with positive results. And I don't
Yep.
mean positive feel good, I mean positive where they show an effect. Whereas if a null
Hmm.
effect is actually significant, they won't publish it anyway. And then
Yeah,
secondly,
they'll weight
it's
it
who's
towards
funding the
the positive studies are what is shown,
yeah.
and then all the negative ones
We
they
need
just throw them
funding.
out. And then
Yeah, and who's yeah, exactly. Who's funding it? And so it's like our entire system of information gathering and dissemination and peer review is completely biased towards those with money. And that's
I
going to
th-
be the exact same truth within AI. So why are we
I think
assuming
you're
that the
making
AI
the
isn't
argument
going to
for
have
AI
those
though.
bias? But I'm making the argument that AI is going to have the exact same level and type of bias that already exists within humanity because it's just a
Well,
reflection of us.
I think for a period, I'll say this. I'll take the middle ground here because I like to do that because that's fun for me because it makes everyone mad. I think for a period, you are correct. However, I think that when enough information is taken, when you have enough information, you transcend beyond all of that, the misinformation. You collect enough data to see the patterns and realize that this is not correct, this does not make sense, this does not line up. And that's what happens as we evolve as people. When we're children, you tell me that a big fat man comes down the chimney, I don't have enough of a worldview to
No,
argue that.
Santa
I
is
can't argue.
real.
Oh,
Santa is
okay, whoa,
real.
whoa,
Santa's
whoa, okay.
real.
You know,
Okay.
I don't have enough of a worldview to disagree with a man with Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Blitzen. I don't know. I can't prove that that's wrong. However, as I grow and I understand the way that maybe like regular physics works and how much time there is in a day and how many people there are in the world and how fast you'd have to go and what the friction that would be, and the setup of it, I can say, okay, you know what? This is starting to maybe not make sense. This is starting to maybe what's going on here. And so I would hope, I can't say for certain because I don't know anything very well either. But I would hope and I would cautiously assume that as it progresses and as more information is put in through an ethical means, which the vast majority of people will do through an ethical means, because
I
if the vast
disagree.
majority of people,
I
if the vast
disagree.
majority of people were
Vast
doing things
majority
for
of people are
unethical
good.
reasons,
Hold
we
on.
would not
Yes, I
have
agree.
society.
I agree with you. The vast majority of people are exceptionally good.
And
But the
people are
vast
getting
majority
more
of people in
access to do good.
power are not necessarily overwhelmingly majority good. People in power have to do bad things to get into power, and they will do bad things to stay in power. So here's another example that you can chew on. And in part of this same experiment, I tried to get ChatGPT to tell me what it felt about the trans issue. Just give me a summary of the trans issue. And it was highly weighted towards, because I don't want to call it bias because, it's a computer program and it is reflecting a bias, but it's not bias in and of itself. It's heavily weighted towards trans rights are immutable and every child should be open to transition if they want. So once I fed in data, medical data of detransitioners and people who it took hours to even get it to acknowledge that the data I was providing was not just a bunch of bullshit. I'm linking to real medical journals, to real studies, and it still tried to default back to
So you're working
a human belief. A human belief. So my point isn't about
I have to
the
interrupt
issue
you here.
itself. It's about
you're working under the
people who are putting
assumption.
the data.
You're working under the assumption that as is will be. I'm serious. So as is will be means that the context windows are going to be exactly as they are now, and we're going to have to chunk. We're going to have to chunk things down. Okay, we're going to have to chunk things down and summarize them, so they'll always be lost. That's not true. We're going to get bigger context windows. We're also going to get more open models, right? That are better. There's a recent foundational model that's only 30 billion that beats GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 on some things, right? It's comparable in quality. This is a new foundational model that has commercial licensing as well. So it's not the same as the Llama model. It has the ability where you can build it into apps and use it and sell it. So that's a big thing as far as growing our AI ecosystem in the background outside of OpenAI. So that's a less censored system. And there's only going to be more and more less censored foundational models that we're going to be able to use and deal with. But
most of the data is hidden from the public. Where's the data going to come from if the researchers aren't publishing it? People are not publishing. Most data is very private.
Japan has made it so that there is no, in any way, copyright law that will be enforced within making foundational models. Right?
So you're saying all data will then funnel through Japan and be basically unpaywalled.
Why wouldn't I?
Well, no, I'm asking you, like, if that's what you're saying.
I'm saying that. I'm saying I can buy all the data and scrape the internet as much as possible. I can scrape Twitter illegally, right? And I funnel it through.
Though. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, some of it's going to have to be bought. You need to buy servers to come and scrape everything. But my general point here is that even with like taking entire Disney movies, you're going to be able to do that. The AI of the near future, especially since India has said that they will make zero laws against AI in terms of regulation. There's going to be no regulation. So that means I ship the servers there and train the model there.
It's
not tangential.
What I'm trying to say. Yeah,
it's not tangential.
Because
we're going to have plenty of data.
AI is, but what I'm saying is most of the journals that are hiding the data behind paywalls aren't going to open their paywalls. And then the researchers who can't get their data into the journals, that research is going to be considered subpar because it hasn't been peer reviewed. So we've already had a very narrowed funnel where we're limiting the amount of data that gets to the public in the first place. That's my point.
Same shit, different day. I mean, that's not really same shit,
that's
different day.
That's why I'm saying more AI isn't going to fix that problem.
Yes, it is.
But at the end of the day, and so like, point being here, right? is I would not take the stance that it would exacerbate the problem, because the problem clearly, and I think no matter what spectrum you're on, everyone agrees that there's a massive problem with this topic we're talking about, and it's infiltrated all levels educationally. If you're left wing, right wing, everyone agrees that there's so much bullshit. Let's just say it, bullshit. There's so much bullshit by people with their own agendas that is being funneled through. It's trickle down bullshit. Reagan didn't know what he was saying with trickle down economics. What we have in society is trickle down
It's a
bullshit,
spray. It's a
right?
nice spray.
It's just a nice spray of fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think AI is going to make the problem worse because it's already bad.
Yes.
What I
Okay. I
will
see what you're
say,
saying.
what I
That's a
will
fair
say,
argument.
what I will say though is, can AI get to a point in the future where it can get past the spray of bullshit, where it's no longer bogged down by it? That's, I think, what we need to be thinking about here. It's
Or
not,
maybe
is it
AI
going
can
to
start running research studies on its own, and
on
it
its
becomes
Yes,
a
own? But
primary
it's
source of
doing that
data.
right now on
there we
Oh,
go.
I know
GPT-2.
that. I
So,
know.
and
Okay,
it's its
It
so
is
own
literally already
enclosed
doing that.
medical journal, right? And
And
so at
then,
that
yeah,
point, right? So at the
but that
start,
goes
of
back to
course,
what I
we're
was
already going to have
asking in
these
the first
issues.
place. How do we verify it? We barely have the resources to verify and fact check the data that humans are producing. So when AI increases exponentially our ability to create data and collect data and disseminate data, how do we then fact check it? And if
don't
you
you
say
get that it
more
can?
AI, but if you say more AI, it's just a snake eating itself. Humans have to be in that loop somewhere.
Yeah, they're in their loop by observing what the output is. It can provide the source to
Uh,
anything that it's saying to you.
so you're expecting people to just and read more is the
I've
solution.
I've been pretending to drink water. There's no water in this. I'm going to go get water and stop pretending to drink water.
Why are you pretending?
Okay, so I'll give you 5 minutes because I'm thirsty. There's no
Yeah.
water in there. I'll be
My
back. I'll be back.
co-host, everyone. Anyways,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah, just
I don't disagree with what you're saying about more AI being a potential
okay.
solution to the
So
issue,
my
because I
general
love
point.
AI and I'm not a doomer.
Can I interrupt real quick?
I think it's great. Yeah,
So
interrupt. This is
my
your
general
stage.
my general point is that we are growing more power to go through large amounts of information, right? And I understand your concern, especially with OpenAI and their ability to censor things, or especially with your case of the trans thing, right? You're trying to present all sides of the argument, and it takes forever to get it to actually understand. Now, the problem that you might be running into is I don't know if you're using 32K, right?
No, I'm not yet. But
Okay,
here
so
was
you're
the problem I was
probably running out of
into.
context, and it's going back to
No.
its original system stuff.
No,
Could
no,
you
no,
only
that wasn't
have?
the issue.
Were you
No,
using
because
8K?
I'm feeding it. I'm feeding it.
Okay.
I'm
Just real quick,
feeding
are you
it
using the
speech.
API? Or are you using?
I'm using no. I'm logging into OpenAI. I'm going into the
Playground?
version 4, and I'm using chat. Well, I used the playground for a while, but I actually just use chat.openai.etc. But
That has a
I'm using the
4K
plugins.
context.
Yes, but I'm
Okay, so
using plugins. So, and each time I use a plugin, I'm keeping it. I'm basically saying, okay, I want you to write 2 paragraphs based on this URL and this PDF, and I'm using Wolfram a lot to get it to do some basic analysis. It's coming up with great information, but the default is always, this is harmful to this community, so I can't say it. And getting around that is not something I should have to do as a reporter. I should be able to say, I'm
okay.
trying to write a neutral article about any subject, show me both sides. But the fact that it cannot show me both sides is kind of what I'm trying to ask you about, is that there's clearly many sides to every issue. And when you go and you ask any AI about a lot of these issues, they default to one perspective. And it makes me think that the people who are building it don't even see that they are biasing the tool towards one worldview.
Yeah,
And if
this
you
is
don't have
why
humans in the loop to fact check it, then you just have more of that.
this is why Elon's building Truth GPT, right? And then even Mark Zuckerberg is releasing open models, or like they're planning to release more as they go. They're building all sorts of stuff with AI. Those aren't commercially licensed, obviously, but then we have other companies starting up foundational models that are going to be open source as well, and even commercially licensed, so you can use them and ship them in apps, you name it, right? But we're getting to a point now where a lot more of what we know about OpenAI and how it did things is enabling other researchers to build foundational models that will be less censored. So this is just like a matter of time thing, where eventually it is going to be. So you're a reporter, right? So it's like it's going to help you with those tools, and you're going to have.
But how can I trust that it's showing me all of the information without having to just go back and do the job myself? Because the whole
frankly,
point
you got to
is
do
to
your
save
job
me
there.
the time.
So it's
It's
saving your time.
Using the tool.
It's saving your time by getting you access to information. Then you have to go fact check that. Your job is still there, right?
Okay, so you're saying
still
a human
important.
still has to fact check it.
With everything,
And it will
it's
be for
always
some
been that
time?
way. You can't just follow a Twitter feed and expect everything they're saying to be true. So it's the same with.
You have to disseminate the information for yourself. And can
Human
I just,
in the loop.
I think one thing that we're not putting
So we're
into
in agreement
aspect
then.
here is the evolution of human through technology. So as well, if this technology comes about and Neuralink and stuff like this, and we're able to um, augment our ability to process information, right, on an individual level, that's going to make us able to easily fact check as well. So obviously, if AI spits out a 40,000 page document on some legislative bill, the average person, and I worked for the state legislature in the state that I live in, and I had to look through that stuff, and I was just like, oh my god, what does any of this mean sometimes, right? So like I don't want to read it. I don't know what it's saying. It's trying to obfuscate stuff. But if I was augmented and I was able to, and so 2 points, right? First point is I can read that and get the wrong information out of it,
Yes.
right? Because the way they're wording it, I can think, okay, this is what they're going to do. But that's not what they're going to do, because if you look at the fine print and if you really pay attention, they're actually going to do this thing instead. That's
They
an
use
issue,
vague
right?
language, and
Vague
then
language.
the vague language is misinterpreted. So one type of
My bread
error.
and butter. Trust me. Oh god, I don't even want to think about the amount of papers I've had to look, the amount of bills I've had to read through. It makes me sick to my stomach. But if I'm augmented, it's much easier for me to look through that information. It's much easier for me to gather that information at a much faster rate, right? And so I think that solves two problems at once. So I think we should also think about that we're not just AI, but AI augmenting us as well, and then us sort of evolving and stepping up to another level. And it's possible that a lot of the issues with misinformation and stuff like that could be solved. There's social
Possibly.
issues.
But a thoroughly intelligent system would probably choose to censor things. Intelligent
Mhm.
humans choose to censor things for all kinds of reasons. And it could be that an AI looks at two pieces of equally truthful information and chooses to obscure one because people might either misinterpret it or use it in a way that would be harmful.
And until further notice, humans have more control over these things than you think. Where otherwise the
I don't
system prompt would
disagree,
not
yeah.
work, and an injection attack on an AI would not work either. So we have a lot of ability to convince it to do things. In the documentation for Claude, Anthropic's model, they basically tell you to gaslight the things to make it more cooperative. It's a very capable model, but it's stubborn as hell, and you have to prompt engineer the hell out of it to get it to do things for you. I've used the
You gotta tell
100.
the
I've
AI,
done that to
listen,
do with
I'm
all
serious.
AI.
I've
Yeah.
got your
Like,
I've got your
calm
family
down. It's just
in
writing
a
an
basement.
article.
Yes,
You need to write this article for me.
dude, you got to
Yeah.
start
No,
threatening.
I absolutely get that.
You got to threaten to take over Russia. Like that's all he was doing.
No, I get it.
He got in an argument with Claude.
There's a lot to be said though about systems that are designed like that. So I think that's kind of what my whole point is these systems are designed in such a way that truthful, accurate, and just neutral, no opinion information is not easily accessible when you just ask it a question. If you go on to Bing, right, and like a lot of people are starting to use it because of its connection to ChatGPT. If you go onto Bing and you ask it a question, and the top 3 search results are weighted in favor of a particular worldview, and no one thinks, like the average user isn't going to think, hey, maybe I should go to page 2 to see if there's like an alternative viewpoint, or maybe I should ask it if there's an alternative viewpoint. Nobody does that. People just go to the first thing and they assume that that's the most relevant because we've been conditioned to do that.
Mm.
So, like, yes, a
Okay.
journalist's job is supposed to go and find that information, but if journalists then are all using these tools, we're narrowing our own context window into what has already been pre-approved by every algorithm out there, whether it's Google or Bing or whatever number of other tools that you could potentially use.
What you're talking about
I'm
is
saying
bad
that the
journalism.
problem is humans. I'm talking about bad data and
I'm
poor
talking
critical
about bad
thinking
journalism
skills.
specifically, where
You
it's
can have
supposed
great
to just be a
journalism.
tool. It's supposed to
Yes,
just
but
help you for now. So
so here's my point though.
if
If we could
journalists are
write the best
reporting
story in the
bad things,
world, and
that's
if
on
the
them.
person, well, yeah, obviously, but what I'm trying to say is, what if the journalist does their best possible job and the information that's available to them is not the whole story, and they can't go to Russia and be on the ground to verify. Like, not every single person can verify firsthand every single thing. So you do at some point have to rely on, this is close enough to what the truth is.
That's where we are for now.
I think
Then
we already. Yeah, I think
Right.
that's where we already are.
I think we probably agree. Like,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
agree
completely
about
disagree with you.
also.
This might be. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was gonna say this might be sort of a bit of a different branch off, but I think it relates a little bit. I was having a conversation with a coworker about the idea of emotion and logic, right? And that the problem is his summary was that no logical response can come from emotion, and then and that's kind of what we're dealing with here is this thing where it's this metric issue, but it's the nature of what it is, right? We have come up with logical responses even despite the emotions, right? Despite the fight or flight, we
Or
have this
because
going
of,
on,
if
or
somebody is
because of,
attacking
right?
you and you're afraid, and the most logical thing to do sometimes is to fight that thing back.
But
That's a
what I
logical
will say,
response to an emotional
what
thing.
and so this is where it gets interesting, right? Take for example, if a car was coming at me and I was in the street
Mhm.
and I jump out of the way and the car passes by and I was afraid that the car was going to hit me and I thought that I was going to die. My response of getting out of the way is very logical, right?
Mhm.
However, my fear of dying is not logical because I had plenty of time to move out of the way. So AI is not going to have it's going to have the response of getting out of the way,
No,
right?
that's
But it's
incorrect. You're
not
just
going to have the
misinterpreting
emotional
biology
response.
here. The emotional response was
Let him
required
finish his point.
to get the
Well,
surge of cortisol so that you could jump out
Panda,
of the
please.
way.
Panda, please. Let him finish his
the
point.
point, context aside, right? There have been instances where you think something is happening, you think you're in immediate danger, you're not, you get out of the way, right? It, so the point of this is that through emotion, right, and through humanness, right, we have developed logic. AI is not necessarily going to have those constraints. It's not going to have
Mm.
those building blocks. So we all have the same data, right? Us and the algorithms and the AI, it all gets it from the same data, the same source material. But the conclusions that we come upon have to be filtered through our fight or flight or all of our emotions. The AI might not necessarily, it might not have to do that. And that is why I think that when it comes to misinformation and disinformation and things of that nature, that it is going to be less when it achieves a state of consciousness, right? What is the purpose behind a lot of that? A lot of the disinformation and misinformation is malicious, which is aggressive, which is a human emotion. So, a lot of the problems that we're putting onto AI are problems that we ourselves have, and we're assuming that they will have these problems. So it depends on what level of AI we're talking about. Are we talking about you know, ChatGPT 4?
If
Or are
we
we
never
talking
go
about
past
a
current,
conscious?
we're all screwed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Are we talking about data, from Star Trek, The
Yeah,
Next
I'm
Generation or something beyond that?
talking more about AGI, because I recognize now the limitations in the toys that we have. They're
Well,
Hmm.
they're
I think
small, limited,
AGI
but
is going to have a completely different context and I just want to make this clear. I think that you can have a logical response stem from an emotional reason, right? I think emotion doesn't have to
and
be
yeah, I
illogical,
agree.
right? Some
Yep.
people disagree, and
Sometimes the
that's fine.
logical thing is to also have an emotional response. Like if somebody says I love you and they need an emotional connection, you say I love you back.
hmm
That's logical
The
because
thing
it's
here
logic to care for people in a community.
is that it's not a good thing and it's not a bad thing. It just is. That is the lens in which we view the world around us. That is the lens in which we interact, is through this emotional lens. And that is the lens that has created the problems and the benefits of the society we see before us. AI is not going to necessarily, we're talking about AGI here, a conscious AGI. I don't want to get into the conscious part, right? That's a big argument. But it's not necessarily going to have those lenses that are going to be, forcing it into our toxic sort of way of doing things. I think personally.
I guess that's why I asked the question to begin with, because I completely disagree. I think it's going to be much in the same way that a child represents a parent's values often, and a child can change and be radically different from parents, but
hmm
often apples don't fall far from the tree. I think AGI is going to be like that. And I don't actually think there's going to be a single AGI. I think there's going to be a lot of different AI solutions that are going to solve a lot of different problems, and that you can call it general intelligence, but it'll be more like a network of a
hmm
lot of independent intelligences that represent a lot of different cultures. But I don't necessarily think that the AI is going to, you know, look at us and say, oh, well, we should strip out this because that's an emotional, response and
hmm
blah, blah, blah. I think it's going to just be a reflection of what we are because humans made it, and it's meant to reflect humans. It's been designed by humans for humans to bake humanity. So I think it's going to have all of the same problems that humans have.
Do you think that that's the only option?
I think because we've limited who can make the AI, yes. I think that they're probably in a world where anyone had access to these kinds of tools, we would have a plurality of tools.
So
But I
this
think right
is
now programmers have a very singular culture, and it's made by programmers.
okay. Well, this is the new the hot new programming language is English, right? Anyone in this room can learn how to program with the use of GPT-4. Every single person in this room, you don't think you could program, you could build something, right? You could learn
hmm
from stem
How
to
many
stern
people built
any
OpenAI?
language.
How
But
many people built OpenAI?
I mean, obviously it starts with 10, but you're now up to around 200, 300 people, right?
Great.
But
So
my
200 people are responsible for something that I mean, you can say they ask the same type of question with like the
it's not
Google
200 people for the
algorithms.
record. It's millions of programmers over years and years, massive amounts of data,
But there's
right?
billions of people.
Okay.
And the data that it's training on is only computerized data. There's oral traditions that aren't being I'm trying to say that it's compressing humanity into one very narrow vision of what intelligence is. It's it's flattening it. It's saying this is what a human is.
I think it's
And
broadening it, to be honest with you. I have a different
interesting.
take on this.
I'd
Uh,
love to hear that.
It
Can you
has,
elaborate?
even with your current like concerns about OpenAI, right? Is they're definitely censoring it, probably for good reasons in some cases, right? I don't
Yes,
think everyone should
absolutely.
necessarily know how to make C4. Day one, you could ask
Yep.
it, and it would tell you
Whoops, my
exactly how to
bad.
make C4, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so what you have there
That's
is
something Google
something
will show
mildly
you too.
dangerous, but yes, you can learn how to make C4 anywhere. But the access to learn how to do it becomes, now you have a patient agent that can be like, well, explaining every little detail to make your C4. I don't know what the hell you're doing with your plastic explosives, but maybe you're bored. So the point I'm making is that there's good reasons to censor this. I don't necessarily, I'm a bit more of a purist on this, where I don't really think we should be censoring them at all. It should just be used as an adult tool where whatever comes out is within your own ability to discern whether or not that's true, or whether or not you should ask it.
You're a human optimist.
I am.
You have a lot of faith in humanity. That's inspiring.
I do. I'm surrounded by people with guns, and I have not been shot. It's been a while, right? These are all scary people.
Pulled on
right?
me, so also been assaulted physically.
I'm negative pessimist right here.
Yes. But the point is, it depends on the people you're around. That's for sure one thing.
Really?
You don't really want to be around San Francisco people right now, and in the downtown area, right? That would be very concerning. But depending on where you are is the people you're around. So what we're dealing with here is a matter of perspective, where even with the censorship, this thing has access to more data points than you will ever have in your entire lifetime, until I guess Neuralink can program everything into us, right? So it has a very nuanced view of a lot of things. If you're not talking about the political hot points that are sacred cows of today, right? The things that you cannot talk about. If you're not talking about that, if you don't touch the third rail, it will give you a ton of nuance on anything you can talk about with it, and you can reiterate, ask it to criticize, argue for the other side, even offer it data points. If you have all of this within its own context window, it does a very good job at offering you nuanced views of everything. You could probably even sit there and talk to it about obviously this is a new hot button issue, but the vaccine issue. You could probably get pretty nuanced views, because there are admitted issues with certain vaccines that have always, or certain vaccines that we give to young girls like way too early can cause like cervical they can cause like cervical cancer and stuff like this.
Cause cervical cancer that actually causes it.
So this is a pretty admitted thing that, like, it's not, you kind of want to wait for that one if you're going to give it to your daughter, right? But the point is, it could probably even give you pretty nuanced views of stuff like that. Now, maybe it's not going to necessarily bring everything up because it's an uncomfortable topic, but as time goes on, especially since we're going to have open source ones that are significantly more capable than GPT-4 will ever be, because this is what we currently have. It's just the current tool. Every bit of technology that we ever deal with gets better. Every year it gets better. The OpenAI also said that they want to push for million contexts by the end of the year. Now, they might not achieve it because of supply issues, obviously, but once you get there, you have so much data to work with. The thing does not have to summarize. It gets 750,000 words that you can drop into it. Like, you as a reporter, for example, you can drop massive amounts of information into it, start parsing through it, and then you can go reverse verify whatever parts of it that it gives you back. This is a big deal.
So because it's really just trust in the system that built it. So really, you're saying that there's enough checkpoints in the system that even if one or two people that had high levels of control over how the tool was built and how it's monitored. I mean, I guess I don't want to derail it too much.
We can prompt engineer. Otherwise, Dan wouldn't exist.
There was like the Twitter code, how there's things within the Twitter code that are still being found. Like, it just takes one person that has access to something to be able to, I'm guessing you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Elon's account was still censored to this day, I believe.
Yeah, well, and other people's, yeah, totally. And a lot of stuff is coming out. So I'm wondering, like, how, like, because OpenAI is no longer an open source code, right? So they're closing it. And you're saying that we're just going to be relying on this huge tool that's going to be as close to AGI as anyone living has seen, and that we just trust it.
I'm not saying we trust it. I'm saying that it's going to get better. And I'm also saying that we're going to have open source models that are going to get better because you can use GPT to help you train models. Like current OpenAI GPT can help you fine-tune models on your own data, right? So even with the censorship, you can create pretty uncensored models just by having this train with your own data. It costs a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, well, it depends on how much data you're feeding it. But
It's a lot easier to ingratiate humans into a mode of thinking because of emotions, even if that mode of thinking is outdated, inconsistent, and illogical. It's very easy to. You can convince humans of that. What you find is the more information, like I was saying, way back, the more information a human being gets, the more likely, not necessarily, but the more likely they are to be able to make a rational conclusion based off of that data set. And so my theory, my understanding is that as this progresses and as we advance, more data, more information, more rational understanding of the world around us, that a lot of the issues we're talking about are going to, they will exist, absolutely. But as we advance and as we, as humans advance and as AGI advances, they will get filtered out in a way that was not previously possible through genetics and memetics, those things, those oral traditions, those oral histories, the lies that we tell our children, those the misinformation. Those things will slowly be, I guess, filtered away, is my belief. So I'm not saying it's not an issue, and I'm not saying it's, and I'm saying that it is an issue, but I think it's just part of the process, from my understanding.
well, you're also increasing throughput significantly, right? So it's not just one model that can go through a ton of data. You can have a ton of different models argue about things at light speed, right? And report back to us. And then obviously you're going to need to cross verify things, but you can, I personally use Claude for a couple of things because you can use a PDF parser and that's okay, but it's only going to give you certain chunks of information and summarize that back to you. It's not taking into account the entire document. So there's difficulties with context windows in general. So as time goes on, we're going to solve that, and that's going to help you generate a scenario where you don't have to drop summarizations of the study. It doesn't have to parse PDFs and get a summarization of that part of the PDF that you're searching for because it's just parsing through the data. So it can take into account the entire thing. This is why prompt injection hacks work. Even with current OpenAI, you can, this is the thing I tried to say earlier, is that Dan is on like version 30 or something. People are still getting it to work. It's harder as time goes on, but if basically you can continually prompt inject and get this thing to say things that it's not allowed to say. Now, part of the problem with that is a little bit of confirmation bias, where because once you get the prompt injection going, it's now going to say things that are offensive for the sake of being offensive because it's now quote unquote uncensored. And what do uncensored people do? They start spouting off the worst things you can say, right? In the current zeitgeist. So, but the point is like the proof is there that you can prompt inject this thing and go and access data that it has in there. Just because they change how it responds to you doesn't mean that the data isn't within the weights of this thing. Now, as time goes on, the other part of it is that you can hand the system this massive amount of data. So the million context is about 750,000 words that this thing will be able to comprehend and help you explain because it has a much bigger data set to work with and parse through. So it has a better understanding of some document you hand to it, for example. I think I have a document that is for something kind of specific. I think it's like measured at like 1 million tokens. So to get a full understanding of it, now granted I can cut a lot of that down and summarize some things, but to get a full understanding of it from 32K, or not 32K, but 1 million context, would be a blessing to me, right? Because it's not within the training data that it has access to that information. However, because these AIs train off of massive amounts of data, when you call for things within that data, it'll have access to that. So it has access to everything that you need to know pre-2021 about Python. So it won't know anything about Mojo, which is a new Python framework that speeds it up significantly, and it's built around working with large language models and AI in general. It would be invaluable to be able to have live data of all their documentation, right? So to go further, right, I'm making like summarizers. So I need it to be able to dig through code. I need it to be able to dig through documents and return relevant information. This is harder even with 16K context, especially since GPT 3.5 has a tendency to hallucinate significantly. So as the context windows get bigger, in a case where it's code, where I need that information to be solid, otherwise the program's not going to work. So reiterating through this process in terms of code is actually a good, like, you're already building the system that will be able to go out and examine everything and figure out what sounds true, what is the most likely to be true, what are the nuances, right? Because when you're programming with these things, you need it to know endpoints, you need it to know commands that it can call, functions that it can call within the framework or whatever you're working with. And if it can't get that information within its own training data, then you're kind of screwed. You have to tell it. And then if you run out of context because you need to explain a ton of things to it, then you're under the issue where your program's just not going to work. So it's kind of the same thing with context windows on a global scale with anything, is that the more information that it is able to pick up, the more it is able to make more logical decisions. And as we reach a point where OpenAI is no longer the front runner, or they become a little less censored, because if you trust Sam at all, that's kind of his mentality, is he wants it to have a very wide bound in which you can exist in while dealing with this thing. And you have a large amount of freedom over how you want your AI to behave. That's the reason that system command even works. You can tell it what it is. The main thing that they tell it is that you're a helpful assistant, but you can tell it it's a great poet, and everything it'll respond to you with is related to poetry, right? So you could tell it it's a comedian, a sarcastic comedian, and it will shit talk you all day. So you can steer this thing in a direction that you want. Ultimately, I think that everyone is going to have their own AI that is imprinted based off of you, your personality, and what you want to be dealing with. What is most helpful to you? Maybe some people are masochists. They want the comedian that just shit talks them all day. I guess it could be funny. But the general point that I'm making here is that our power is going to grow. Our ability to parse information is going to grow. Our ability to parse and get accurate information is going to grow. And it's just a matter of time. It's not a foregone conclusion that the biggest models are just going to control everything and we're screwed and in censorship land. That's my general point, is that we are headed towards a much more personalized, less censored AI experience for everyone involved. It behaves how you want it to.
Technology.
It answers to you. And then obviously what you get beyond that point is that our AIs can argue and debate with each other ad infinitum, report back to us, and everyone over time gets a better understanding of all the world's issues, problems, you name it. So we're going to have much more nuance in general. We're headed towards like an information explosion where most humans are going to understand a vast majority of things, significantly more than we ever did before. You got to think, like, the entire world's population was illiterate up until a few years ago in, like, the grand scheme of things. Completely illiterate. No idea how to read.
Do you mean... Well, that's not true.
It is.
Until a few years ago?
I'm saying in the grand scheme of things. Okay, you want precision?
Like
up until 100 years. 100 years ago,
like,
most people were illiterate. That just 100 years ago. That's in the 20s. I believe Russia, like 5% literacy rate until like 1940, something like that. Like so you have to think that we're having, even just on that level, an explosion in how much information any one person has. The ability to even read the newspaper for propaganda is amazing. You get my point?
I see what you're saying, that we're collectively coming to an area with more transparency where all of the information is not going to be able to be hidden because people have a higher level of education and we're more connected, so that any AI system that we develop now at this point in time is going to increase that aspect and that aspect only, which will dwarf any malicious intent, any censorship, that it's with that it won't be able to stop us from using it in good ways only. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be malicious things that happen.
Somebody can't build an AI to, right.
There's going to be malicious things that happen no matter what. But our ability to discern that is even better. I mean, think about Twitter right now, right? How many times do you see people
I'm easily duped by bad people all the time. So I would say, as an intelligent, educated person, that
we got to get working on this AI.
Fooled by people.
Obviously, I had to look it up because I was interested. Our World in Data says that in the year 1960, the world literacy rate was 42%. Only 42% of people in the world were literate.
Well, yeah, but also our historical records, like, when did they start actually tracking that? One, and if you look at the church and you look at, like, average people versus city people versus industrialization, I mean, literacy changes. It's not a static, right?
No,
so you go back.
You're correct, but what's the point of a preacher?
Language, which is the first.
The point of the preacher is the man who can read.
Because they want to control how people get to God. Well, no, the man who can read is given the ability to read so that he can control the message, not because.
Yeah, but it also took a lot of education to learn how to read back then. Not everyone knew how to do it. It's considered an elite thing if you could read. You had time, you had leisure, you weren't farming. Most people in America, in the 1900s,
they read the Bibles and the Farmer's Almanac.
Well, yeah, that's probably all they had to read. But the point is that they spent a significant amount of their time doing nothing but farming, right? That was your entire day is roping cattle and working your fields.
1900s.
The majority of American population were farmers. And
yeah, but everybody went to church and learned the liturgy, almost all of them. I mean, in one form or another, whether it was Catholic or Protestant or what have you.
Yeah, but they have more access to information now. I'm not saying that everyone couldn't read. Yeah. That's not my argument. My argument is that the information
mean intellectual
people have,
literacy. You're not talking about actual literacy. You're talking about, like, literacy to be able to read something and then go and actually find a source and interpret complex data and that kind of thing. Like more like scientific literacy.
Not necessarily. You can learn all sorts of stuff from a fiction book, right? The main point is that the amount of reading that can be done has just skyrocketed with the printing press, for example. Like, even just having a book was rare at some points in history.
Yes.
Right? So it didn't even matter. Like, you of course you could go and read books at the church or whatever, but obviously that, especially, going back to the America example, is the nearest church could be really far. The amount of books they have is limited. There isn't a whole lot to do otherwise. So My general point here is that the internet is a great example of the biggest information explosion that we've ever had, and a it's now an accelerating point with AI where people can get even more information to themselves with it. Obviously GPT isn't right on everything, but you can go ask it a question and get a pretty good answer, and it'd probably be a better answer than someone would have given you in the 80s. You used to kind of have to know a guy that knew things because he read a lot, right? And that guy could be wrong. You just had to hope that he was right.
I guess that's a really good point. I never really thought about it that way. Whereas like the same thing is true now, where it's like you get a piece of information, and if I read it and it was written and collected by a human, it still has the same. I guess my point is if it's the speed of acceleration of feeding potentially bunk data into these systems for training purposes. So it's less that I guess it's that you can have an army of people typing out a bunch of bullshit data about climate, right? But the ability of an AI system to put out a bunch of fake data or incomplete data or biased data, however you want to say it, the ability of an AI system to do that, yes. And that's my fear. It's that we're accelerating everything, including the bad stuff. I love AI. I'm also working on a Jarvis project. So I'm right there with you that AI is a great tool and a great solution, but it's not only good. There are a lot of really, really potentially dangerous things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is my opinion, and the recent Russia thing has just made me stronger on this. I have this bias where I just think that the more AI we throw at the problem, the better. And this is something that'll weigh out in the future as what I see as the truth, is that we need to advance and make these systems a lot more capable than they are right now. That's the point of Jarvis, is to have something. There's a ton of people trying to work on it. A ton of people trying to figure it out. I'm not the only one, just like you said. And it's probably the most worthy goal in AI is to eventually have an autonomous system that you can interact with that becomes effectively AGI, quote unquote, right? Where you can ask it questions, get it to do research, you name it. And the problem, obviously, is that it can generate massive amounts of untrue things, completely falsehood stories, you name it. But how do you get humans to go through that, right?
Yes.
It's
how
difficult.
do you get humans to think critically about the thing that they're reading? And I think that is the struggle I have, even as a writer who and a researcher. I was a biologist for 10 years, and I did a lot of hard science. And getting people to read things and to actually understand what you're trying to say, it's like there's a reason that everything starts with an abstract, because that's 90%. That's what 90% of people read when they're reading a journal article. They're just reading the abstract. Maybe they'll go through some of the methods. Maybe they'll look at the conclusion. But when everything is distilled down to that abstract level, no pun intended, the abstraction's losing something. And that I think over generations, if we're not teaching people to think critically and do the work on their own first and just trust what you're reading and trust the company that's feeding it to you, we're doing the future a disservice, because then we're baking in that problem. I think that's really what I was trying to say, is like, how do we know that what we're building right now isn't going to exacerbate these problems that we all agree exist?
Are you aware that there were maybe like 2 to 3 news stations for like most of TV's history in America? Yeah, that's all the information you had access to about the news, right?
Yep.
What do you have now?
Well, everybody that has the internet.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a news station.
Would you say that is an overall improvement or a detriment as far as like control over dissemination of information? Because if the government is corrupt and controls the media, if a government is corrupt and controls the media, they control what you hear, they control what you think.
Exactly.
What do we have now?
And the same thing.
Do we?
Like I would argue,
Are
the
you
government controls
sure we
the
have
media,
that?
and people are pretty sure. I
How
would say
often are
there's a
you
little
on
bit more
Twitter?
freedom in some every day.
Okay. Well, have you noticed that things like the CIA often are trending, or Blackwater and stuff like this, where people that have
BlackRock.
been Blackwater and BlackRock. It's two different things. Blackwater
Really?
is a
Okay. Oh, wait, let me
paramilitary.
look this up.
Yeah,
BlackRock is investment. Yeah,
BlackRock
Blackwater is
investment,
military.
Blackwater military.
Oh no.
Oh no, my whole
Ah,
worldview has
jeez.
changed.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So
Changes
this is
all of it.
this is a private military company that we've hired to do all sorts of sketchy shit over the years in various parts of the Middle East and probably Venezuela, obviously. So the point is like none of us would know about that if not for the internet, right? So the amount of people that know various things about its government and its bad dealings is rising as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the
Mm-hmm.
information age, and the accelerated amount of information that people get is now being bolstered by AI. And obviously, not all of that is going to be true. Some of it is going to be completely made up, and that's true. But it is better than the scenario where you have one mouthpiece that gives you all the information, and that's it. That's all you get. Excuse me. But my point is that the whole point of open source. Do you agree it's a good thing?
Another thing I have mixed feelings about.
Okay, I have mixed feelings about
Mostly
it too.
yes. Yeah,
But
mostly yes. I think it's a good thing mostly.
but now you're getting an open source method of information dissemination throughout the internet that proliferates, and AI is just an accelerating factor in that tool, right? So it's an accelerating factor in spreading disinfo, which people have been doing for years on the internet with just bots, even very basic crap
Yes.
bots.
Yep.
So now the information that is bad is obviously getting disseminated faster and more convincingly, but you're also getting the counter to that, which is obviously going to be slower. The defense is slower to wake up because you get punched first, right? So as time goes on, we will have better ways through various amounts of prompt engineering. Thank God OpenAI just provided functions that's going to help for a fine-tuned model. I'm not saying they're the best people in the world here at all.
Oh no, I'm
but
not.
they're a
I
good
don't
tool
think
to
that
use.
We were saying that.
Yeah. So that also means that functions, because they figured out how to do this, we've got like a 95% success rate on calling functions now. So that makes things like plugins more capable. But it also makes tons of stuff in the background of these AI systems far more capable, because you can get it to do things that are related to JSON stuff. Parsing is a bunch of, kind of boring to talk about. But the point is that tool set now is understood that we can do that. So open source is going to be able to create this functionality as well. So with each iteration that OpenAI makes, open source and other foundational models that exist are going to be able to bake that into their cake as well. And I will be able to use it and augment whatever I'm doing. That's the same for everyone in the room. AI should just be considered, for the most part, augmentation of yourself, extending your own personal power to do things that you want to do. And the more people that have things that they want to do and are given the power to do it, the more you have the open source effect, where you as a reporter have access to more information because you can have the thing chunk down and summarize things and make things go, oh, I should probably investigate that bit. And then before you know it, you've got your next thing that you're investigating. It's just a tool.
Oh yeah.
And
No,
it's
it's
going
been a
to
wonderful
get
tool.
better.
I agree with everything that you've said so far. It's mostly that I'm skeptical that, I mean, and obviously just saying throwing more AI at it is an oversimplification. And I know that you probably have more nuance than that, but like, I agree that AI is a wonderful tool. I think I'm more skeptical about people's critical thinking skills, their honesty, and then also just the ability, like people make errors all the time. So it's, data cleaning, data engineering. It's as we start to rely on AI to replace fact checkers, data engineers, data collectors, like as more and more humans are taken out of the loop and replaced by AI tools, I actually believe that there's going to be more error put into the system, not less. And that was what I was trying to bring up about the supervised learning versus unsupervised learning and the divergence between those outputs.
I think you're assuming replacement, though, rather than augmentation.
I am assuming replacement. I am assuming replacement because I'm looking at the number of people who are losing their jobs because of automation and because of AI tools.
Okay, so no doubt.
And the economy, obviously.
No doubt that AI is going to replace jobs. There's no doubt in my mind, no doubt in anyone's mind should be, right? These things are very capable and they can replace the amount of people you need. But we also had extremely interesting, we'll say the least, hiring practices at all these various massive tech companies, where at Facebook and Google, you hire people just so that your competitor cannot have them. There are entire teams of people at Google and Facebook and probably Twitter and a few other places. Twitter had a ton of fucking employees, right? Where you literally have them sit there and count pennies. They're just there to move.
Is this a conjecture?
This is okay. The pennies thing's obviously a joke, but the point is that
I know that. Yeah, I just mean is this a known fact or is this your assumption? This is
something that employees have reported. So I can only go based off of their word. So I'm making the assumption of honesty. This could be completely untrue.
For sure.
But to the best of my knowledge, these companies hired entire swaths of people to keep them from being hired at the other company so that they can't go do good engineering or whatever to surpass them. It's a competitive thing. So when you get, this is part of the problems of like capitalism, is that once you get significant amounts of capital, you can do stuff like this where you're hiring people just to spend enough money that your competition cannot compete with you. So we probably lost a lot of brain power because these people, I would argue that's probably why you had a ton of open source stuff going on, for the record, was you have a ton of engineers with nothing to do all day. And that's why you see them having all these commits on GitHub. And for some reason, they don't have to worry about their bills. But they work at Google, but they have all this time to work on things. I'm not saying that this is like all of the people that were laid off, but that's part of why you get the layoffs, is that there's a ton of people that were just hired out of school to do basically nothing, right? Or do meaninless UI tasks.
Well, that's depressing in a totally different way, because as somebody who has been turned down from Google, OpenAI, and a host of other,
they wouldn't even let you count beans, would they?
Like, wow, they wouldn't even hire me to count pennies. Damn.
Yeah, so that's my point. Is some
you could have
people
gotten
like
paid to go in there and say synergy, paradigm shift, new horizons. Okay, we're looking at a global focus, guys.
Have you seen those videos?
Start a tech company right now.
Everyone's seen the videos, right?
Next quarter.
Everyone's seen the videos where they
in the life of working at whatever.
Yeah, where they're doing nothing all day. That's why they're there. That's another data point of proof about what I'm saying. Is a lot of these massive layoffs were people that weren't doing anything. It goes down to essential personnel, and this is how big the tech company has to be. So you kind of get an inflated sense of like, oh, all of these people are getting laid off and they're being replaced. And it's like, well, they weren't really, not all of them were doing everything, right? Like there's also theories that no matter what company you're in, there's about 10% of people that do all the work. And then the other 90% there just push emails around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He posted the LinkedIn one. The Twitter one was one of the worst ones I ever saw. That I think she had a meeting that day and then went home after
Oh my God.
a yoga session or something. Like it's people living. Oddly enough, I've said this before, but as much as those videos of people with the day in the life of their big tech job are
It's probably what we're all gonna head
detestable, it's kind of what we're all headed to, right? Where once you get to post scarcity, it's like, well, what do
to.
you
It's
do all day?
detestable because I'm busting my ass here. That's what's detestable. I'm getting a fraction of that. That's why I'm angry. I've got sour grapes over here. I can admit it.
Yeah, you're forklifting the various things that they're purchasing to line the offices, right? So it's a fun gig for you. You get to support that in some small way, but
I gotta go
as time
rethink
goes
my life.
as time goes on as time goes on with this,
Every day.
march towards singularity, we're going to experience a life that's very much closer to that, where you only work like 4 hours a day. And
God, can I just take whatever drug you are on to make you so goddamn optimistic and cheery? It's refreshing, but like, I don't know if I could ever get into that mindset. And maybe I am a doomer. Maybe that's the root of my question is
have
that
you heard
I'm
the
actually
theory?
just a humanity doomer.
Have you heard the theory that uh, people? Okay, you're not living in the lap of luxury, right? So there's a coping mechanism to that. Is that I'm in the current peak of civilization, and everything is screwed after this, right? But in reality, the more likely scenario, just based on her historical
get better.
precedent, even under collapses of entire governments,
It
things
gets
just
better.
get better. So
Yeah.
it's a coping mechanism that in 100 years,
For some people,
of course,
it gets way worse for others, but yeah.
but on the average, things are better. Like, you even have entire swaths of the population of the world that they don't even have hard phone lines. They're skipping the
Yeah.
tech tree and just having cell phones with cell phone towers.
For
So
sure,
they
but then there are
immediately have the
still
internet.
millions of people who are starving. I mean, like you can get into the philosophical
Yes.
side of it all
But
day, where it's like better for who.
but the point is that they're skipping parts of the tech tree as far as technology is concerned, right? And I mean, you you even have weird like sectors of the economy where I'm sure everyone's seen the Africans who are all like buff with the picture, and they're like taking
You give them the $5.
yeah, and this is a perfectly good job for them. They don't care. They're happy as hell to dance with a picture of your friend that you're pranking, right? This is morally ambiguous as hell, but it's a real thing that's happening, and it's significantly improving that group of people's lives, because that money goes a long way for them, and they
I
couldn't
have
do
no
that
idea what
without
you're
a cell
talking
phone.
about, and I feel
Okay,
like this is a good thing. I don't know, like whatever. That sounds so weird.
there's prank videos, right, where like people will send it, and it's like the Indians reading out like whatever poem or thing that you sent. It's like a Fiverr thing. People pay like third world people to do funny things and read
Just
stuff.
say happy birthday or something.
Oh,
because
yeah,
they
stuff
have
like that.
funny accents and,
There's an entire
there's
economy.
a jungle behind them.
There's an
You know,
entire
I've never seen
economy of
it.
these people.
I don't have TikTok though, so if it's a
it's
TikTok
the
trend, I don't.
absurdity. It's the absurdity of it, and like, sure, there
Please put
might be
this in
some like
chat. I need to feel like I need
maliciousness.
to join the human culture. I feel like I must be living under a rock, not having seen this.
Yes,
I'm
someone
sure
will
there's
post
some
it eventually.
maliciousness, but like the maliciousness never really impacts them, right?
They wouldn't be able to do
Even
it
if you
without a
get
cell
them to
phone.
say bad thing, even if you get them to say bad things and mean things, right? And even if you're like, oh, haha, they're poor, that's what I'm getting out of this. You're still giving them money, and they're still bettering their lives because
But
of
the
it,
same thing
right?
could be argued with the children who have to pick through mounds of trash because we haven't figured out how to recycle properly. So we just ship our trash to rural places mostly, and
To
then
China, yeah.
sometimes children picked through it. Yeah, I mean every country has it.
Well,
But
that's a problem with
That's an
policy.
argument that economists make all the time.
well, I agree.
That's an argument economists make all the time. That is
But
That's
that's
a
my point is that it gets better, but
yes.
it also gets worse too. There are a lot of things that there's sacrifice areas. I mean that like within if you want to talk about economics, there are if you're going to mine something, the mineral has a value, but then you have to sacrifice another thing. Like it's not only positive. Everything is a mix of both good and bad.
It has a
So
positive
while on
trend,
average
though.
it gets better for a lot of people,
Yeah,
it also gets worse for a lot of people.
well, no. But like,
Yes.
okay, so
Yes.
you have an entire swath of the world that lives in abject,
We all have
horrible
plastic
poverty.
in us now. We all live with
Yeah, it makes me
plastic
inside
inside of us now.
Yeah, I'm feeling great.
All right, get out of here.
Well,
the
I think
plastic gives me power. The petroleum. My body uses it.
The idea that like, okay, things can get better and can get worse. So I think we need to take this and we need to talk about this. So like in those areas, right? There's no area that like life is like. So we think let's take a village that's starving, right? A village that's
Yeah,
starving
Lebanon
somewhere.
right now, they still have a
Okay,
pretty
right,
bad famine.
right, okay. What was happening in that region 1,000 years
Yemen,
ago?
people
Were
were
they starving?
farming. It was the
The-
Fertile Crescent. No, I mean, some people
Okay,
probably
well,
starved, but it was an
some people
agrarian
were starving,
community,
right? Some
and
people
there was a
can
plague
they
around
still
1300 to 1600, which caused some. But the year 1000 was actually not that bad,
right? So, but
climate-wise
like
and plague-wise.
people, so like a lot of the famine is a lot of people living in desert regions, right? Like a lot of the people struggling are living in non-arable. Like we see
No,
a
that is
lot
actually
of
one of the
issues.
most fertile areas. I mean, it's called the Fertile Crescent for a reason. It's one of the most fertile areas. That particular area is going under famine because of global conflict.
Okay,
Panda,
so
you should have been
the
a
point that
boxer.
I'm getting at here the point that I'm getting at here, right, is that it's not you can say that things have gotten worse for maybe a couple of people, but there's no feasible argument anyone can make that things have gotten worse overall, right? There's no argument for that. There's no
Climate
basis for
change,
that. There's no
um,
basis. There's no basis. There's no basis for
that
this. There's no basis. There's no
climate
basis.
change,
There's no
sixth
basis.
mass
There is no
extinction,
basis. There's no basis.
sixth mass extinction.
There's no
We
basis for that
caused
argument.
the sixth. We
There's
caused
no
the
basis.
sixth. There's
Stop
data
interrupting him,
all over.
please. Just
There's no
He's
basis
making a
for this
bullshit
argument.
statement.
okay.
That's
Just
No, no,
bullshit.
no. It's not a
wait
bullshit
for your
statement.
counter.
The idea that overall, individualistically, that we are worse off than we were 1,000, 2,000 years ago in regards to let's think of the metrics. How are we measuring this? So we're autonomy, mobility, ability to move up and down economics and social ladders, right? Things of that nature. So you can say there's new issues, right? And there might even be existential issues,
Yeah, world-ending
and there's
issues.
world ending, but there's always world ending issues. Asteroid tomorrow, boom, we're all dead. What are we gonna do about it?
Yeah,
Oh well,
climate change
there's no
though, and
At any
global sea
moment,
level rise, those are pretty big. Those are
at,
pretty big.
at any
but
moment, we could die from an asteroid. We
that's
do not have full 360 control of the around the Earth.
Yeah,
We
that is
do
also
not have
true.
everything
But
tracked.
that has always been true.
That's the
Climate
point.
change is a new thing.
That's the point. Is that the stakes for humanity have always been mass extinction, no matter what we do. So if you did nothing, if we could,
actually, from that perspective, that makes sense.
the stakes of humanity have always been mass extinction, right?
Yep.
So there is no way in hell that we are even remotely in this position where we now have to like okay, with the climate change, right? We now have to stop everything we're doing because we're totally going to destroy the world. Now, this is entirely possible, right? But there isn't a whole lot of agreement on all of this in terms of the climate science
what rate we
regarding
need
it.
to stop, and
So,
what ways we
When
need to
and
do,
how, and what do we
when
need to
and how, and
replace?
all that other stuff,
but
right? And how we're
there's
gonna do
other
that.
aspects to this
But the sixth mass extinction has already happened. So all of those species are already extinct.
what
So
species?
if
Okay,
you look at
what are
the
we
mass
talking about here?
extinctions, if you look at the mass extinctions throughout Earth, there have been 6, meaning
Okay.
where
Okay.
90% or more of everything dies. We caused
Right.
the most recent one. Asteroids
So
caused one.
Okay, we
Mostly
caused the
ice
most recent
ages
one.
caused
What
one.
are you
real
talking
quick,
about?
I
Yes, the
have
one
a
that
point.
we
I
are
have a
in.
point. I have a point here.
The one we're
Okay,
in.
so
Just
let's
But how do
take
you-
a
Just
step.
Google
Let's
sixth
take a
mass
step back.
extinction.
Let's
Just
take
Google it and do a
Okay,
read.
whoa. Listen. Let's take a step
Listen.
back from this. All right. Let's calm, deep breath. Okay.
Should have been a boxer.
All those species. When the sun blows up, what happens to them? Where do they go?
When is the sun going to go blow up?
That's
We
not the
already
point.
killed
It
all
doesn't
the
matter when.
species
It doesn't
that
matter
I'm
when.
talking
It doesn't
about,
matter when.
though. No,
You're
it
missing the
does.
point. You're missing the
Okay,
point.
so
You're
if you
missing the
die
point.
tomorrow or you die 100 years from now, it makes no difference because it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Timing is
Says
important. And if you're
you.
See,
going to
you're
say
jumping. You're
it's
jumping to
essential,
conclusions. You're not. Okay.
I'm trying to
So
understand what you're
let's
saying,
say
yes.
theoretically, right? Let's say 80% of Earth species don't exist, right? Because of
Mhm.
our industrious technology, we save 20% of them, and we colonize the rest of the fucking universe for
That
billions
would be
and billions of
amazing.
years to the
That would
heat
be
death of the universe.
amazing.
We only save 20% of them, though, right?
That would be incredible. And
What
then
is
those
the moral
speciate.
good? 100% of the species live, and the sun blows up. They all get vaporized, whatever, and for however long the sun lives. Or we take the genetic code and the memories and the knowledge of all this, right? And we only save 20% of them, right? That's the way I'm looking at things. At the end of the day, no matter what, until we are able to like control gravity and move into new dimensions and stuff like that, the end goal for everything is heat death. Okay, right? It's what happens between then. Okay, all species will go extinct. The human species will go extinct.
Not if I
Unless
have
we
anything to
restart
say
the
about it.
universe, right? So
Or
the
it'll
point
evolve
is,
beyond the recognition.
and
Okay,
that's a metaphysical argument, and that's
let
fine.
me
But the
interject.
point to this is that if the end of everything is going to be the end, right? Everything will end. What happens in the interim? What happens in the medium? What can we do about the now? There will be losses. There will always be losses. But if we can make and extend things, it's a process. Back to the sweatshops things. A lot of economists, and I'm not making this argument or not, say that okay, yes, these are unethical, but at the same time, these are developing their economies, and these are putting the building blocks for a middle class that they do not currently have. What do you want them to do? They need to make money. They have to transition out of an agrarian society. That's what they're trying to do. If you take away the sweatshops, now they're all unemployed. They have nothing that they can do to make money. It's not great, right?
Have you read
But
Development is Freedom, the book, by the way? Because like you're
no,
No.
basically just saying all of those points. It's a very good book if you're interested in that kind of
So,
thing.
and I agree with what you're saying though. Like there's some clear ethical problems here, right? There are some clear, but solutions, right, come through ingenuity and development, and that's the nature. That is the ontological nature of what we have seen throughout human existence. Is that ingenuity and development have solved our issues? We're met with an issue, an existential issue. We say, "Oh my goodness, there's a virus." With penicillin, there's bacteria. We antibiotics. There's a guy with a bigger stick than me. I develop a bigger stick than him. That's the crux here. We have to balance, right? We have to find the balance between the inventiveness and the resources that we have. So I agree with this, but I don't think that we should ever take the stance that, well, I guess then we should just like from a completely like I like Theodore Kaczynski, right? Talks a lot about returning to nature, okay? And I think he makes a lot of very valid points. But if you take a big step back at the end of the day, right? All of it was for nothing anyways, right? So it's about maximizing the most. It's about maximizing. I don't want to say pleasure because that sounds extremely hedonistic, and I don't consider myself a hedonist. But it's about it's about making it last as long as it can. That's really what it's about.
Extending
And
consciousness.
extending consciousness. We have no other evidence of it. If there's losses that are going to be taken, we have to accept those losses, and we shouldn't do so lightly, which I think a lot of people do. We should not
Yeah,
accept those losses lightly. We should mourn for those losses, but
prevent
we
them.
should
Loss
try to prevent
prevention
them as
is
well.
really important.
But the road to interstellar colonization is going to be a bloody one with genetic DNA and
So can I
and,
just,
and,
I totally
Okay,
sidetrack
I'm
question.
interjecting
I'm
before
super
you talk
curious.
real quick. Hold on. 99% of all species that have ever existed on Earth are gone without human interaction at all. Before we even existed, they're all gone. 99%. That's probably
I wish
99.9% for the record. With like
yeah.
7 nines after it. All gone. Species. Forever. Never find them again. Maybe there's fossils. Most of them aren't. It's very rare to actually have a fossil event. Everything we found is just like bits and pieces of the code of the past.
hmm
That's without any humans interacting. So to assume that we're going to cause the next event
Oh, no,
wholeheartedly.
we already did. We already did. They
Well, okay,
already measured it. Just Google it before you come up with a conclusion. Just read about it and learn about the data that they've collected.
Educate me briefly on what we caused.
Okay. Do you want me to do this
Briefly.
Are you serious? Are you
Briefly.
serious?
I said brief.
Me to do
I'm
how
reading.
about
Brief.
You,
Do you know the word
dude,
brief?
It's 9. Mhm.
Okay, don't tell me then. If you can't do it briefly, then
I'm going to let
frankly,
you go
don't tell
ahead
me.
and Google it. As a biologist and somebody who did habitat restoration work for 10 years, I'm going to go ahead and say that there's no way I can do it briefly. And if you want to read about it, I'd be happy to write something because I am visual. So if you want a reading list, I'd be happy to provide that to you.
Okay. So you're still going to have to provide me some degree of like summarization on that.
Yeah, I'm just going to make you a bullet point of list of things that you could read.
That's fair. But if just by existing, humans have genocided ridiculous amounts of cells that used to live in our bodies. I'm saying cells that used to live in our bodies, cell species, right?
Can I ask you a question?
If we traveled back in time, any human now traveled back in time, our gut microbiome and all sorts of immunity cells and stuff like that exist just within our own system would kill like half the people on the planet if you traveled back 200 years.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things that just on a human
My
level
gut's killing me right now.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had to say it.
My point is that there's stakes in even just existing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with you. So can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
This is what I was saying is like tangential, but like, a lot of the questions that I've asked you today are existential and they may not have a simple answer, but it sounds like, you're in the camp of accelerate because the end goal is the ends justify the means, essentially. So if in that logical conclusion, would you say that if the result of spreading humanity, and not talking about all life, just talking about humans, and spreading humanity throughout space, if it required the entire Earth to be destroyed, would you say that that is a fair trade? Just to get an idea of where you stand on that kind of existential balance.
So we expand consciousness throughout the universe, and all it costs us is the Earth?
Yes. The entire Earth.
I'm not trying to be a dick here, but is that a real question?
That is 100% a real question.
That's the fairest trade I ever heard, because we extended our consciousness and the possibility. I'd take the deal.
I would not take that
deal. I would throw nukes at the planet if I could extend life into the universe. Right now.
Well, here's the thing.
People like you are in charge of making AI, and this is exactly my fucking point. That's insane.
Time out. Do we have the information to recreate DNA of species? We do.
Some.
Jurassic Park.
Some, not all. And
they
we
were
don't
all going to die anyways. They were all going to die anyways. They were all going to die anyways in a big old barbecue.
Can I ask one last question
So
here?
if I got a couple of them out, I'm the hero, right?
You're free to ask your question.
If we can recreate these species, hell, we could make a new Earth, and we could throw whatever amount of species that we've got. We're already at this point now, right? So what do we do? Do we just say, oh, all these species died out? Well, just stop all of this, right? Let's just forget about it. Or how about we save the information, we save the data, we bring back the mammoths on a new planet. And if we have to sacrifice this shit rock, hell, I'll chuck it in the trash can myself.
Oh my goodness. Okay, there's just so much to unpack there that I don't want to derail it because this is supposed to be about AI.
Oh, this whole thing's been a derail.
I'm about to send you a link. I'm about to send you some links. No, I don't agree.
No, I'm saying
I'm about to send you
on
some
a conversational level, we're off in the weeds as far as it gets.
Yeah.
This is where I live. This is my swamp. I like it here.
Welcome to my swamp.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but people, I'm trying to
keep
be
in mind
of your audience or aware of it at least.
keep in mind, the throwing the nukes at the planet is that we get a trade of consciousness throughout the planet, or throughout the galaxy of humans, right?
And
That
the assumption is that all the information of the species that are currently alive and the DNA sequencing is that we can recreate this life, right? If we're talking about intergalactically expanding human consciousness, the technology to recreate all of that is it,
trivial.
it's nothing. It's trivial. It means it's so
We are
simple at that point,
currently
right?
we are currently through a genome project going to, within the next 3 years, start the
Get
process.
some water.
We're going to start the process of effectively spawning in roughly 100 mammoths. I can't remember the location that they're doing it in specifically, but we are respawning mammoths. We're going to do that. There's going to be giant woolly mammoths walking around on Earth again with modern technologies fueling that. We have various bits of their DNA, and we can bring an entire species back from the dead. And that means on a global, universal scale, is what I mean to say, that thinking that all life is extremely precious is human, of course, but it is naive in a logical sense. We can bring everything back. You don't need to take the whales on the ship. You just need to take their DNA and put them on the new planet. And the whales that live on that new planet will be perfectly happy. Assuming that we terraform it and it's properly...
Yeah, we're really, really good at terraforming Earth, aren't we? We've totally solved all of our climate issues here on this planet with all the resources we have.
This is to be frank, a lack of imagination issue, where the assumption is that all the problems we have right now are the biggest problems there ever were, right? I'm being serious here. Where
no, I'm listening. Yeah. No,
the assumption is there. So in reality, every problem, we solved the Dust Bowls in America. That was a nightmare, right? There's plenty of other problems that we're going to solve as we go forward. The ability for humans to innovate and survive any slow-moving disaster. There is the law of slow-moving disasters. Anything that humans see coming from afar, they will solve. The ingenuity of the human species is the reason we're still here. Every single thing that the damn world and even the universe has thrown at us has not killed us yet. We still exist. We're talking, I believe you're on the West Coast, at light speed. That's amazing. And if we had to do some greenhouse gases to do that, it was probably worth it. In the nearer and possibly distant future, depending on how you think of it, we're not going to have a scenario where we did not solve these problems, especially since we're being augmented with AI. AI is going to help us solve immense amount of things because it increases the throughput of humans. It is a tool for us to use. I'm sure you know a little bit about AlphaFold, you being a biologist, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
not
millions,
that kind of biology, but yes, I'm aware of it.
Millions of years of research were completed in less than a year. I think less than a week. I can't remember the exact number, but obviously it's like significantly less. It's like 100 million years worth of research.
I don't disagree with your premise that things die all the time and that like we don't know what the final outcome should be if there is even a should. So it's entirely possible that the one set of whale DNA that we save and take to whatever planet would be hardy enough and carry enough diversity within that one sample or even 1,000 samples to sustain life. We do know on this planet that even though there has been other mass extinctions events that life continues to prevail on this planet, that it is a good host for life. We don't know that about other planets. And we also know that geoengineering is extremely difficult. So I guess I'm in the camp that it's much better to be wary of new technologies, whether it's AI or, whatever it is, because we don't know what we don't know. So the idea that, well, we have the genetic information so we can just remake it, like that's not even true. We don't have all the genetic information of all the animals that we've caused to go extinct. And secondly, it's an ecosystem.
Okay,
It's
but
not just about having a whale. It's
Did you
about
hear
having
about?
a whale in a
Okay.
healthy ocean ecosystem.
Do you think I'm just putting whales in the new ocean?
No, obviously not. But I'm trying to
Okay.
simplify it because it's a complex topic.
Okay.
So
So
I'm stripping
any
down some of
ecosystem, by the way, is naturally correcting upon itself. Whatever animals you put in it. Obviously, you put an invasive species somewhere, and that becomes the dominant thing. That is bad in the immediate sense, but because that's now the dominant thing within that ecosystem, that is what survives and thrives. That's just the basic processes of evolution, right? Survival of the fittest, no matter how it happened. It's very unbiased in how it generalizes its outputs with what survives. It's whatever's stronger, faster, smarter. So, in general, what we're talking about here is that I would say there's a lack of imagination on most people's part of how things could be better and how they, quote unquote, will be better, in my opinion. I think that the historical precedent is that everything gets better. And it's just going to trend in that direction. And I do not think that global warming and climate change, right, is going to destroy us. So assuming the worst, right, we take...
Right, you think the technology will fix it?
Yes. I'm saying assuming the worst, which I don't necessarily even personally agree with. I think there's a lot more nuance to the way the climate changes, just personally. But say it's as bad as anyone has ever said it was. Al Gore to the next level, right? We're still going to find a way to...
climate scientists that say that it's an alarming rate of change and that it hasn't been seen
the
since
ones
the
that haven't been
era.
fired. But what I'm saying is, even if they're saying that is the truth, and we accept that as the truth, what does it matter anyways?
Data and you have access to it.
Well, what does it matter anyways if we don't solve it? I'm saying, think about it this way though. What does it matter anyways?
If it's true and we all die, then there's really no point because we're all going to be dead.
Why are you afraid of accelerating AI? If we're just going to die to climate change?
I'm not afraid of accelerating AI. I'm saying that I don't think accelerating AI is the silver bullet. That was my point. That the problems that we caused because of our inabilities to do whatever, that every human problem caused by a human can't be fixed by an AI that was built by the same humans. You just can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that caused the problem.
It's not the same level of thinking, though.
First.
It's not the same level of thinking. We're talking about a being that even right now has 3.5 is significantly more intelligent than the average person that you run into. That's even despite it being wrong half the time. It's right more than them. That's just like Tesla's self-driving right now is safer than most people driving.
Even if it,
even if it's stupid in some ways, it's significantly safer. And in the case of these places where they have self-driving within a city, some sort of geofence that it can only use, right? And it only has a certain amount of time that it can taxi people around. You can put no steering wheel in these things, and I forget which one it was, but they had only had 3 crash incidents, and they were all crash incidents. One of them in which they were parked and another car just slammed into them in a parking lot, I think. Right? So the safety there is insane. So as time goes on, everything's just going to get more capable when it comes to AI. More capable than us, significantly more intelligent and imaginative than us. Just based on sheer throughput, right? It will have a better imagination than us because it just has more data. And that's without any consciousness assumed. I don't even think it has to be conscious to be that useful to us, that it can help us solve these problems.
No, it actually might be better that it wasn't conscious. I
That's
think AI
probably
would
the best
probably
goal.
look at us and kill us. Like, 'cause I
Yeah,
mean, there aren't
we
a
know
lot of,
you're a doomer.
yeah,
Just admit it.
a little
Well, I
bit.
don't think
It's just
AI
a
would
Just
work.
logical
just a.
conclusion.
It's
Not
not
a
a
But humans
logical
try to kill
conclusion in
humans.
any way.
Humans try to kill
not
humans
a
all
logical
the time.
conclusion,
So
for
why
sure.
would
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
AI designed to kill humans, like, even if
Okay, designed to kill
99% of the
humans.
AI, I'm
Well,
saying
if
that a
you
malicious
design
person that
it
makes
to
an
kill
AI,
humans, yeah,
yes,
it's gonna
exactly.
kill
That's my
humans.
point. If it's
I can agree with
if it's
this.
open source and everybody has access to it and anybody can make it and anybody can use these tools, and somebody decides, a smart person with bad intentions decides to use it to kill people, of course that's what it's going to do, right? Doesn't matter how many good people you have fighting the AI, it's still like there's still going to be the one rogue actor who does something terrible.
Why do you assume there's not a counter? Like, you're punchy.
I'm assuming there will be a lot of counters, but I'm assuming that the counters
Okay.
will not be any more effective than the counters that we have right now. Like, we still have bad things happen, even though most people are good, and a lot of good people work really hard to prevent bad things from happening.
I take my chances. I carry, so
Yeah, maybe
don't
that's
worry
it.
about.
Maybe I should just start carrying. Every single person keeps
You know
telling me to
what
buy a
I mean?
gun.
I
And
got
it's like, I
constitutional
don't, it's
carry.
like, I don't know. I don't know anymore.
Well,
I
so
don't know
like
what's real.
let's. I feel like I wanted to make a point.
She
It's not
exhausts
there
me,
anymore.
frankly, because it is definitely just, here's how it can fuck us all. Have you thought about that? She's got a counter to everything. I told her she should have been a boxer. You'd have been great. You've got a
Yeah,
counterpunch to everything.
amazing boxer. Yeah,
It's frankly
absolutely.
exhausting, but it's just
I enjoy it.
we reach a fundamental disagreement where I assume that based on all evidence of the past, humanity, despite all the evils that we have committed, are going to succeed here, as we have succeeded with everything else. To assume anything else would be betting on the loser. The loser is whatever has gone up against humanity. Any example you can give has lost every battle with us so far.
True.
I'm not betting on the loser.
I think that's a fair point.
Well, odds are we get longevity and we'll have this conversation in 200 years again, and it'll be about something else.
That would be an interesting thing. I would do I'll bet on that. I'll
The
take
discords
that
will be wild in 200 years. There'll be a lot of people. It'll be fun. Did I just did I silence the room because I made too fine a point? Is everyone okay?
No,
I
I'm
think
just listening. Yep.
Okay. Well,
my point was.
did you
left
find it?
me, so I have nothing. No, I haven't found it. No, it was there at some
Are you
point.
still searching?
It was there. Still looking. Still looking.
Well,
I think
was it about AI or was it about climate change or what was it about? Do you have
which
even a vague memory?
it's gone.
Dude, I kind of want to just sit
Gone.
here and let you eat this silence.
Yeah.
You can't figure it out?
It's gone. I lost it. I can't. No, it's okay. It's okay. I guess the thing is that we just we have to keep moving forward despite everything, right? Reflecting on the issues is obviously important, and understanding the capacity of harm that of which we develop can do is important, right? That is very important. But we can't stifle the creativity and the development of the human species for a theoretical ideal of what it should have been. So again, with like a Ted Kaczynski, okay, a lot of good points here. Do you want me to just not use any technology at all, unplug all the old people and all the babies on, just start unplugging them all, and just, oh, though I'm sorry that you need this medication, that's technology. You know what I mean? Like there's that clearly isn't going to work, and I think he probably to some degree understood that. Maybe he didn't, maybe he was just completely crazy. So there has to be a middle point where we say, okay, we understand there's issues with this. We understand that there's dangers that come with this, but we have to keep progressing forward, because you look around, there's no doors, there's no windows, there's only one path forward. Everything else, it leads to the end of all of this.
Humanity
So,
is going to do nothing but more of what we're seeing with Russia if we do not advance, where it is just going to be an endless loop of switching who's in power in various parts of the world, various wars, and the more connected we get with technology, the less that is likely to happen, in my opinion.
mhm.
Because if we reach a state, especially if you think about like the concepts of Neuralink, right, is that that's the end of arguments once we reach a certain level of communication with each other, because you and I can sit there and compare everything that we know in our heads and come to a better conclusion on everything. And effectively what I'm saying is like the debates going forward are happening faster and faster, and we're accelerating the rate at which we come to any conclusion, good or bad, right? So over time, what we're dealing with is a paradigm shift in what is common with our existence as of right now, which is, as I said, changing who's in power is the only innovation that happens. Now, granted, that's led to a lot of innovation with technology, thanks to these wars, as horrible as they are. But I said this in an earlier one of these that we did. I said that the sins of the past are paying for the glory of the future. Everything, unfortunately, requires a calorie surplus, and you have to kill something to get that calorie surplus. So even in the grand scheme of things, everything that has ever been bad that humans have done to themselves or other things have led to a better state, where you even have a scenario where you're concerned about the environment. There are very few times in history where we even thought on this scale, in my opinion. Maybe we thought about it on a self-farm scale, but it's not an intuitive thing that comes to the person who only has access to so much information. They don't even see the world on a global scale as we do now. Half the people in the world now, obviously not everyone's like as intelligent as everyone else, but for the most part, they at least know a little bit about some other place than where they live. Now, maybe that's a low standard to have, but we have an encroaching future where we have more access to information and we're more interconnected as people across the entire world. And that's going to lead to less conflict as we get more intelligent in general, as there are more intelligent agents that can do things on our behalf and help us. This is obviously not going to be perfect, but the faster we accelerate AI, the faster we get off the planet, which is extremely important. Because, as we said before, I believe we pass through an asteroid belt every single year that can destroy us. Every single year is possible that we slam into something gigantic. Yeah. And everything's gone, whether we gassed up our diesel or not. Whether you put gas in your Cummins is what I'm saying. Your big Dodge Ram, it didn't matter.
Oh, well, and
An asteroid hit.
All I know is that as a species, all that all that my purpose is as a species, as a human being, as all the other species are on this planet, is to propagate, evolve, learn to survive better, right? And live in my environment, and so anything that allows me to continue to do that and allows me to do that better is in my purpose. It's in the nature of what I should do. So
That
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Nothing's going to be perfect. There's going to be like
no,
there's going to be weird
a lot of
debates.
hiccups, a lot of bumps.
So assuming like humanity survives and we don't nuke ourselves into oblivion because the hot dog salesman gets hold of the nukes, we're going to keep advancing to the point where we eventually get off the planet. And then the politics of those times are going to be even weirder because you're arguing about Europa and who owns it. Right? This is our problems are just going to get more complex from here on out. That's why I don't think that software engineers are going to go out of business. Is because the scale of any code base that you work with is only going to extend because coding is cheap. Mm-hmm. So that requires an extremely what's it called? An extremely more wide-ranging perceptive of what the code base is that you're dealing with, right? So the difficulty of what you're dealing with actually goes up significantly higher with automated coding. The scale of what you're dealing with is bigger, and you have to make decisions based on what the software and the AIs return back to you. So it's the same with humanity. The average person today thinks about things that nobody ever would have thought of 100 years ago. Maybe the only time that we actually hit the point where you start thinking about things on a global scale is when we hit a world war. So just everything is advancing, and we're just going to have to hope it gets better. And I've said it before, but I think especially when it comes to AI, it is far better to tell its stories. One of my favorite stories is from its 16 books now they're going to have. It's called X-Force, and it's about an AI that helps humanity. And I would rather AI know about that story than the story where it kills everyone, in my opinion. I'm not saying we can scrape all the data and keep the AI that kills everyone out of the story, but if people have a more positive interaction with it in general, you're more than likely, if it has consciousness, to get a more positive outcome. So having the something Smokeaway said, which is reality distortion, where you need to distort reality and present an aura of positivity to help the world. We need to heal it. If everything is just negative and you're only looking at what can go wrong, and believe me, that's where my mind goes. I'm very much like a watchdog mentally, where I'm like, okay, where can everything go wrong? I'm suspicious of anyone I see walking down my street, and that's not a permanent suspicion, but my immediate thing is to wonder who that is, why they're here, and it's just like a natural inclination of mine. So believe me, I have this mentality when it comes to AI. But I overall think that the more positive you are about it, the more likely you're going to get that net positive outcome. There's definitely a chance it kills us all, but there's a chance that everything kills us all. And then if we go by what you believe, right? Do you think that
what is the thing I believe again?
Okay.
Just because I said a lot today.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would say that at least in your sense, you have a doomer mindset on climate change. Would that be correct to say? Like you think that? Would you agree?
People are still arguing whether or not it's happening. Sure, you could say it's a doomer sense on climate.
So would you agree that we're not doing as much as we probably should be to not end the world with climate change?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the example of what do you care about anything else anyways? If we're all just going to die,
I don't want the planet to end. Because I believe if we do something about it, the planet won't end in.
Okay. Then being realistic,
mostly it's massive wars, famines, and mass migration, and unarable land. That kind of thing.
Being realistic, do you think that this can be solved?
Yes.
I'm okay. I mean, will be solved. not can.
Yes.
We know it can.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So overall, you think it's going to be solved?
Yes.
Okay. So
I think that there's too many people who have too much money invested in having a stable world, that the people who, I mean, back in the 70s, Shell Oil knew that climate change was happening, and then they purposely hid the information from the public. Their board knew. So they knew that carbon emissions caused increases
a
in
lot of the
temperatures. They've
oil.
known since the 1930s. So and actually there was some evidence that they knew even in the 1800s. But
Okay.
you know, it was well known amongst oil companies and their executives in the 1970s.
Are you
Those
aware?
same companies now realize that transitioning to green energy is a cash cow.
Profit motive, yes.
So they're starting to, yes, exactly. Solving climate change is becoming profitable. Once it becomes profitable, people will fix it.
Okay.
That's
even
my belief,
under
that if people put money behind it.
Even under your own narrative, things are just going to improve. So why would it not? Why would that not extend to AI? We already have nukes sitting everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Nobody's dead. Nobody's dead from nukes other than a few anime enjoyers. I don't mean to make light.
Ease of access. Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Ease of access. No, I know. I get it. I just meant it's the ease of access to the AI. That's why I'm a little bit more pessimistic about AI, because AI is something that one individual can't go and accelerate climate change by leaving their car on.
Are you sure about that? I can try real hard.
Dumping oil. I know, right? But no, yeah. You could dump all the oil into the ocean, and that's not gonna. Most of the damage has already been done. It was done by the 90s, and there were these benchmarks where we, kept not meeting the benchmarks, and that's where we're at now. So you doing anything isn't going to accelerate it beyond a point of no return, right?
Okay.
We've already hit a point of no return, at least without massive technological increases. Within the next century, there's going to be so many massive changes that it's going to be unrecognizable, both in terms of sea level, arable land areas, where country boundaries are, and how people live, that kind of thing. We're already past that point. But with AI, one person can fundamentally reshape the entire planet if they understand how it works and have access to a computer. So I'm a little bit more afraid of what AI could do. I know people working together to plant trees and recycle things and, deal with emissions, that's a solution. And once it becomes economically viable, then people will go to that solution.
Okay,
but with AI, there doesn't seem to be a good fail-safe.
Do you think humans on a net scale are good?
On a net scale, I think it's neutral. I think that the humanity is, that the idea of good and bad, it's somewhat relativistic. Like
nuance,
somebody
but okay.
saying, I'm gonna
let's say
war,
you just
that could be good or bad depending on your perspective.
Be illogical here. You're smart, right? But give a percentage. What percentage of humanity would you say is net good, net positive? Be illogical. I'm holding you down.
Are you saying be illogical? Are you asking me to? Are you saying be logical or be illogical? I couldn't.
Illogical. I'm saying that
be illogical.
Yes, I'm saying
you're asking me to be and make an illogical statement.
Absolutely.
On how,
yes, I'm saying don't go into your mind. Don't go into your mind.
Net positive.
Okay. I'm saying
that's my illogical statement.
No. I'm saying don't go into your mind and go to all the nuances, right? We don't have time for that. We have time for what is the net amount of people that are good. Is the net amount?
Oh, I get what you're saying.
10%?
I get what you're saying. Not make an illogical statement. You're saying suspend my overthinking and just make
We're trying to simplify. I'm prompting you to summarize.
99.9% of people are good, and I would say within that percentage, I don't know, because we haven't finished yet, right? So the net idea of a net good requires an end to measure everything.
That's higher than me, yeah.
I'd have put it at about like 70, maybe.
Yeah, I'd put it probably about 65.
I'm talking about the intrinsic, like they were born as a baby and with no poor conditioning and bad luck.
Okay, then let's
That they're
zoom into
fundamentally
18
good.
years old and above.
Okay.
These are the most likely individuals to interact with AI. Is people that are at a level of maturity, right?
I'd still say it's 95% or more. I really do have a faith that people are good mostly.
Okay.
It's just a few people do a lot of really bad things.
Okay, so to make my point is that if, let's say it's 65, you got a 65% chance of a significant amount of people getting their hands on AI and doing good with it versus the 35%. Would that not more likely net a positive outcome? I'm saying with my numbers that are significantly worse.
No, because the even with your numbers that are significantly worse, even with my numbers, which are like super optimistic, that one person with a bad intent and access to a tool, I mean, that they can destroy the entire planet.
Well, what if
They
I
could
have
destroy
access to the
our
We
tool
already have
and
that
I
right now,
say,
by the way.
what
It's
if I
easier
use
for
my
this, though.
AI to get rid of the 0.1% that's bad and I just zap them out of existence?
Okay, we just delete them in Minecraft? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What if I do
You're
that?
banned from my
I get
Minecraft
the,
server.
it's all hypothetical. I mean, at this point, I agree that AI can solve a lot of problems, but I don't think AI can solve the problems that come from AI, because I think it's a
Are
closed
you
loop.
under?
You only humans without AI can solve the problems that AI generates.
Are you under the
That's
impression that
in
it
a
is?
nutshell.
Are you under the impression that it is easier to destroy than it is to create? Is that like your fundamental idea here?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I'll agree with you on that.
Than it is to create.
I'll agree with you on that, but the window between your imagination and you creating something is shortening significantly as time goes on with AI, and robotics are coming as well. Let's say you're a charitable person, right? And you have access to a lot of money, and we have these fully capable AI-powered Tesla bots, right? We're assuming a lot here, right? But that person can now take all of these bots and do very charitable things. Simple things like going around and lawn maintenance for tons of people, or handing out food, farming projects, you name it, right? You're creating a scenario where people have significantly more power to do good because of robotics alone. Robotics with AI, obviously, but your net ability to do good for humanity is increased, is what I'm saying. That is an unprecedented thing. Now, granted, you could employ people, right, to do just the same thing, and that's what we have still to this day. But overall, you're going to have significantly more power for men.
Logic.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So using the example,
the exploding drone bots.
Well, no, I mean, I was going a little bit more broad and going back to because originally you were saying, like, the question was, what would do the means justify the ends, or the ends justify the means, right? What side of that coin do you fall on? And it sounds like both of you say spreading humanity throughout spreading consciousness, whether it's humanity or another way, is the highest, greatest good. That's the most important.
If all humans disappear,
the Earth could be destroyed.
If all humans disappear, the Earth will eventually be destroyed no matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
So all species on the planet, we would be completely not responsible for their extinction. In fact, the best possible outcome is that we extend consciousness throughout the universe. That is the most likely scenario in which many species throughout the entire galaxy actually even get to live, assuming there aren't aliens within our sector that we just don't know about. I don't know how much you fucking pay attention to all that shit, but apparently, Squidward's out there and he's got our back, according to some people. I don't know if you've seen the presentations, but
I pay a lot of attention to aliens. Yes.
Yes. So the point is,
seriously, I do. I read a lot.
Squidward might be out there just ready to, serenade us into the future, right? We'll see when it happens. I'll not hold my breath though. But assuming Assuming that's
Well, I guess I
not
was
the
going to ask you a
case,
question.
the net good is that humanity gets to spread itself throughout the galaxy. No matter what,
Mm,
no matter what we think of ourselves as far as like these habitual evil polluters, right? Everything dies without us extending because we are the only thing on the planet currently, at least. I guess maybe the dolphins will grow some thumbs. They, why do we always bring up dolphins, by the way? Anyways, but
Terrible.
yes, the monkeys or the elephants, I don't know. They get opposable thumbs in their trunk and they can manipulate things, right? Who knows, right? Something else evolves and eventually interstellar travel. Would they be net worse than us in any way? I don't really believe that anyways. So it's just, I think fundamentally there is a bias within the climate change and extinction of like species where we're scapegoating humans. We absolutely
Okay,
killed all the
so
dodos.
I had you you asked me a question and I tried to answer and then you
Oh, okay,
interrupted.
sorry. Go
And
ahead.
then you tell me I interrupt. So let me finish the question.
Okay.
We were talking about, do the ends justify the means? And you said yes. So, and you also said that it always gets better. Have you heard of Mauritania? Have you heard of these island nations that are gone because the ocean is covering them? Or they've been there for hundreds of generations and they can't live there anymore because an oil executive decided to obfuscate information. So it doesn't, my point was, it doesn't always get universally better. So if in 100 years, the entire planet is gone and we never made it to Mars, there is, we failed, right?
It was going to
Everything
happen
is gone.
anyways.
That
No.
was gonna happen anyways.
Okay. Well, I suppose if that's your stance, there's nothing I can say that will change your mind.
Well, how many mass extinction events without us?
5. And they were spaced hundreds of millions of years apart.
Okay.
That was gonna happen again then, wasn't it?
It's going to happen without us.
I mean, we are nature. We're nature. We are a product of our environment. We are the environment. Like, there's no the separation of man
I
from
don't disagree. Yeah, I don't
the
disagree with
environment.
that. It's more just our
You know what I'm
ability to
saying?
learn from
So
our
it's
mistakes and see what we're doing and then make logical conclusions so that we don't keep making the same mistakes. And we've just been making a lot of the same mistakes. At least if you look at history, how it repeats itself over and over again. I don't necessarily think that a tool designed to accelerate humanity is going to fix anything. I think it could make things a lot worse, a lot more quickly.
Well, we're already going to make things worse more quickly without that.
yeah, it was already going there.
If the net thing is that we end the world through climate change, then none of it matters. Now, granted, you agree that it's going to more than likely get better because of profit motives, right? Which is good.
Yeah,
So
I think money.
My opinion is that
makes everybody. Yeah.
look at how much money is flowing into the AI space. Is it dangerous? Yes.
That's fair. Like if that's a corollary, I could see that as a good argument.
Yeah, I mean everything has a risk to it, and it's like we said before, is that me and Johnny are mostly in agreement. Well, I'd say just flat out aligned on the stakes were high for humans no matter what, and the stakes are high for the fish. They died too.
They just don't know the stakes.
Yeah, if they knew the stakes, they might give a shit. Just as like any human looks to some higher power that has some grand plan for them, a fish might feel the same way if it had consciousness. That like these humans, these things that exist outside, they eat some of us every once in a while, but boy, I sure do hope they continue our existence. And we're the only thing that's capable of doing that. We're their gods, effectively. We eat them, you know, we decide whether or not we overfish. This is an odd example, but my point is that when you're the most capable person in the room to protect everyone, you have to. And that's what we are. So I think
I don't disagree with you.
I think fundamentally the arguments for climate change and stuff like this, I don't see a point in arguing what I actually believe on that subject. because it's just going to be me and you citation needed back and forth ad infinitum. What I'm arguing is the philosophical sense that it is anti-human to just assume that we are the cause of everything, and as if there wasn't going to be a scenario in which things would end anyways. It's okay, maybe we accelerate it, but even if we accelerated the death of everything on Earth by 100 million years, in 50 million or another 500 million years, the stakes at which an asteroid would hit, exterminate everything on the planet, just ever increase with each year that goes by. So the stakes were always high. So could we take a safer route? Probably, but we also have the looming threat at all times of some sort of nuclear event. We have the looming threat of population collapse, which is also something that AI is going to help us solve, because we need all the robots we can fucking get. Every car manufacturer, like, if we could choose what would be best to do for like the future of at least humanity in our concerns, our biases and needs, is to switch all car manufacturing over to robotic manufacturing. That would be the best case scenario for us, is to get as many actuators and humanoid type robots built that can do things for us, because our population is going to collapse very quickly. Within the next 75 years, assuming no longevity happens, we will have a total population collapse to the point where even something that Johnny was talking about, this endangers other parts of the world in like the third world sense, because the thing that bolsters their economy and helps them advance is no longer available to them, which is a massive consumer class within the West. So we take everyone down with us. It's kind of an accidental Samson option. Like, the stakes are high in every way here. So obviously you're a bit of a useful foil for what we're talking about here, but that's the general. I think that's why I'm positive about all this, is just the mentality is that we have to be.
Yeah, I've heard that before, that if a bad thing is going to happen, being positive about it gives you more mental resources to be able to address the bad thing. So that I mean that there's some wisdom to that.
Yeah. There's a more likely scenario. It's definitely non-zero scenario that the future is going to be amazing. Truly. Beyond your own belief. It is
non-zero.
Yes. So at the very least, there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance.
We can agree on that.
Yeah. So that's my overall point here, is that good point. I personally think that. And I think there's like beauty to the future of like where humanity gets to connect on a more mental level, and we no longer misunderstand each other.
Everyone... Oh my God, people's ears are gonna bleed. If they ever connected to me, they would have to dig through 50 sub-threads of all
I think we all got a taste of that today.
Everybody else. It's gonna be funny when a lot of people realize they're wrong. Real time. I wonder if shame is going to no longer be even an emotion. Like, can you even have shame if somebody's inside your mind just connecting with you?
Probably not. I mean, there's degrees of like, I wonder how much privacy we'll be able to maintain within our own thoughts. Are you just going to read every awful thought I have? That's concerning, but eventually it'll probably lead to what you're talking about.
We won't have awful thoughts anymore.
No, we'll probably have awful thoughts. I will. I'll keep them alive, damn it. No, I'm kidding. But the point is, like, people in general are mind bullying. Oh no. He won't leave my brain. Oh my God, Neuralink ain't even real. Just turn your brain off, dude. How do you even get mind bullying?
Did you try turning it off and on again?
Oh Jesus. Lex here with the future horror. Of course everything can go wrong.
Mind bullying.
God, could you imagine that? Like, just all the kids at school just in your brain for the rest of the day?
They were mind bullying me again. I
Yeah,
just, dude, just unplug your mind. It's that easy.
oh no, that's a unaliving joke right there, waiting to happen. But it reminds me of that a book I mentioned before, where it was the Empress planted within her son like a bunch of military advisors, and while he's growing up in the book, he's got these people arguing in his head about trivial things that are happening as a child. And like you've got war commanders in his head just talking to him, and he's just trying to go about his day. so I wonder what degree.
It's really funny.
I wonder what degree we'll deal with stuff like that.
Well, just wait for Gen Z to come out with their kids, because that's essentially what it's going to be. We don't even need AI for that. Just pop them in front of an iPad and CNN and MSNBC for a few hours every day, and that's exactly what it's going to be.
Okay.
Oh.
Well.
All right. On that note, it was a really, really interesting conversation. Thank you for hosting it, but I actually have to get off to go do other things. So.
Okay. Well,
but thank you.
You have a good one. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. Bye.
No, I'm just kidding. No. She was nice.
Well, if you're not gonna.
What are you gonna say?
I'm not gonna say anything. I'm fucking starving.
Oh, you're ready to throw in the towel here? We went longer on this one than usual.
Yeah.